Call the February 7th City Council meeting order. Commissioner Smith, you give us the prayer pledge and fact of the day, please, sir.
Let us pray. Our Father God, we come once again, thankful for the many blessings that are bestowed upon us. Thank you, God, for this opportunity to continue to be servants of this city. We ask the Lord to continue to lead, guide, and direct us, and all that we shall say and do will be pleasing and acceptable in your sight. These blessings rest in our Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fact of the day. On February 7th, 1984, Navy Captain Bruce McCandless II became the first human being to perform an untethered spacewalk when he exited the U.S. Space Shuttle Challenger and maneuvered freely using a white jetpack of his own design. McCandless orbited Earth in tandem with the shuttle at speeds greater than 17,500 miles per hour, the speed at which satellites normally orbit Earth, and flew up to 320 feet away from the Challenger during his successful spacewalk. Fact of the day.
All right, got a set of minutes. Any changes, corrections? If not, look for a motion to approve.
Well, I had one little Scribner's error. It's under the council reports. I don't have it right in front of me. It says political feeder, and the word that I used was theater. I just don't want people thinking that I mustered the word political feeder.
Sorry about that.
Theater. Yeah. With
that?
That's the only.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Becker, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Anything on the agenda need to be moved around? Chuck? Thank you. All right, next up, I guess proud and a sad moment. We lost a good friend who served on this council for 24 years, and we read this proclamation at the service last week, but we want to read it here to put it on the record at City Council. And that's for our good friend, Alonzo Williams. And with that, I know his brother's here to accept the proclamation, and so we want to respect the family and read this proclamation. Whereas Commissioner Alonzo Williams Jr. was born December 19th, 1938 to the late Mr. and Mrs. Alonzo Williams Sr. in Claricona, Florida. And whereas Alonzo attended the public schools of Orange County and graduated from Phyllis Wheatley Senior High School in 1958. And whereas Alonzo worked for several businesses in Apopka before establishing businesses of his own. And whereas Alonzo was married to Betty Hayes Williams, to this union came three sons, Alonzo Williams III, Robert Hayes Jr., and Tanya Hayes, two daughters, Faysap and Latricia Hayes Goodson. Whereas Alonzo served as a deacon at the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church for approximately 40 years, and whereas he worked with the Apopka Progressive Senior Citizens Club for many years and served as the club's business manager for a number of those years. And whereas in 1969, Alonzo ran and was elected to the Apopka City Council representing District 1 from 1970 until his retirement in 1994. During his tenure, he was appointed by Mayor John Land to represent Apopka as a member of the Lake Apopka Natural Gas District Board and served concurrently while on the council for 24 years. And whereas Alonzo Williams achieved the significant milestone of being Apopka's first African-American elected official. And whereas the city dedicated Alonzo Williams Park, located on M.A. Board Street, in Alonzo's honor. And whereas Commissioner Williams passed away on January 9, 2024, he is survived by his wife Betty, sons Alonzo, Robert, and Tony, daughters Faye and Latricia, brother Robert, as well as several grandchildren, extended family, and friends. Whereas we gather here today, Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, at the City Council meeting to honor his memory. Now, therefore, I, Brian Nelson, Mayor of the City of Apopka, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do recognize Commissioner Alonzo Williams Jr. and ask all citizens to join me in honoring his memory for his devotion, dedication, and contribution to our community. Thank you. All right, Bradley Williams.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Bradley Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. I've got a couple presentations this afternoon. First up, I'm excited to announce we'll be working with the Mayor's Office to bring back the 2024 Apopka Proud Concert. There's a picture from the 2019 event, well-attended event. We're excited to be working on this to bring it back to the amphitheater this year. And just some initial details. We've invited John Anderson and Sawyer Brown to return. You can circle the date as Saturday, October 5th, 2024. And we will have further details soon. We're working on sponsorships and the final event detail plans to get out to the public. So just a little advance notice that we are working on a Apopka Proud concert and excited to bring it back to the Apopka Amphitheater. All right. Next up, we've had some public outreach and comment on our Northwest Recreation Complex athletic field, so I felt it was appropriate to bring it to council to give an official update on our athletic fields out of the complex. We do run an annual year-round maintenance program. It's developed, executed, and managed by our park superintendent. He does have additional professional expertise provided through our third-party contractor, PPM. With that contract, PPM also brings not only their expertise in the athletic turf industry, but also they have a lot of top relationships with fertilizer and chemical manufacturers that come visit our site throughout the year, and also a variety of university programs that conduct studies on specifically on turf. So if there's instances that we're having an issue with a specific area of the field, they'll come out, take a core sample, bring it back to the university, do a study on it, and give us our next best steps to address whatever issue whether it's an infestation from a pest, whether it's an invasive weed that's come out to the field that might be resistant to a chemical spray. So it's been very useful having that partnership and that ability to bounce that up to study our turf field. Part of this plan, and again, it goes on throughout the year through different phases, but it includes the following maintenance and cultural practices: fertilization and weed control, slicing, verticut, and aerating. So those are all methods to break up compaction on the field. So as the fields are used day after day after day, the foot traffic, the mowers, those type of things will compress the soil. The turf needs room to grow through the soil. So those methods help break up that compaction. We do a couple different types of top dressing. One of them you can see in the photo. We do a sand top dressing. That's to help level the playing surface. We also do an organic material top dressing, which helps boost the soil composition. So we have very sandy fields or sandy sublayers. So we have to continually add that organic material along with fertilizer to help boost the strength of the root system. We have, it's been a couple years now, I think 5 or 6, but we have discontinued our overseeding in the ryegrass, and that's really noticeable, obviously, in the winter, because ryegrass is a cold weather grass. So in the past, we would overseed the turf that turns dormant in the winter, turns brown. but that rye seed pops back into a green grass. So it looks like the field's nice and green. It is green with the rye seed, but as soon as we have to turn back to the grow season, we have to spray all that rye seed out or ryegrass out, and we're basically back to square one with the athletic turf that's under the seed. So we've discontinued that. There's not only it's a highly cost invasive procedure, but it's also requires us to kill the grass back out later in the spring, summer, and we have no idea what's under that field until that grass is gone. So we're continually evaluating our operation and looking at ways to improve the complex in a variety of ways. We do have some additional next steps for our maintenance program. It includes our biannual grading and photo documentation. So we did some overhead shots in January, and I'll go through some of those here shortly. We'll also regroup and do that again in July. So we'll have a winter season and a coming out of summer comparison. That'll help us assess our maintenance practices to see where we're at, if anything needs to be changed or addressed, and give us that good view of the field and what our stressed areas might be. We're also looking to improve our assessment of hourly usage data on a per pad per season basis. It's very important to fully understand how much activity we have on the field over the year, and I'll get into that here shortly as well. We're going to continue our rest and maintenance periods throughout the year, and we're also including some periods on select fields throughout the growing season. So, for instance, as we're coming out of winter, this initial spring season, pads 1 and 3 will be shut down an extended period as the turf starts growing back to strengthen those areas. Once those are strengthened, we'll reopen those and address 2 additional fields that might be showing some excessive wear. We're also in the process of not only the new fields that we're looking to, we're finalizing our bid documents to get that out to install 2 new fields. We're also working on ideas and possibilities to increase additional areas in the park for public walk up, or when the fields are closed, give an outlet for people to go still run around on a field. That might not be maintained to our athletic game level, but a safe, playable field during the winter seasons or during the closures. We're also reassessing our budgetary needs. Our partners and contractors have approached us about potentially adding some additional top dressing. Again, like I said, the sand, the turf, the park out there is very sandy, so organics, we need to keep incorporating that. But we'll reassess that as we move through this budget, and I plan for future budgets as well. If you notice, this picture was taken about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and then a week later, this is what that same area looks like. So we've top dressed the field. In a week's time, the sand has settled, and while that looks like there's no grass out there, the grass is under the sand, and it's now made its way back up. And this is during the winter, so it's a very slow grow period. Just to share our field condition assessment benchmarks that we're going to be using, that we're using moving forward. Each field will assign a grade. Our parks superintendent is responsible for assigning this grade. We will also be working our athletic staff and our third party into grading the fields so we can have a multifaceted look at the field condition. Grade A, sustained good field conditions throughout the field of play. The column off to the side that says field use, this is the expected total amount of field hours you can expect annually to receive a grade A. So 200 or less. So that's, when you look at the year, not a lot of time. Grade B, good field conditions with some thinning of turf and localized wear areas. Anywhere from 400 to 6 hours is expected. Grade C, fair field conditions, expect significant thinning and wear areas. That's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 hours annually. And then D is a significant turf loss, bare areas, and field surface damage, which leads to increased potential for injury. That's the area that we definitely want to stay out of. A, B, and C we can work with. Obviously, we want to try and live in the A area. But D is a field that we would have to take on offline to address drastic issues. And that's typically any fields that experience over 1,000 hours annually. So I'm going to run through some slides here. The left-hand picture is winter 2024. That was taken in January 25th. And then the right side is spring 2022. So just a couple of caveats here as we're looking at these. The left side looks a little less green than the right side. That's cameras, and then also we're a couple months into the growing season on the right-hand side. So the grass has had 2 months advance from what you see on the left. But what we're really looking at are the areas that, let's see if we get the pointer to work. So we're looking at like these type of areas. If you look at the rest of the field, you're seeing pretty consistent weed-free turf areas. And then you see our high traffic areas here. So obviously we're set up, this is our flag football season. So you can see where predominantly we have high use from flag football. Of note also, we have our parking area right here. So typically, and you see this on all of our fields, and it's an industry issue, the fields closest to the parking lot are always the fields that get hit the hardest because you're right at the parking lot. So if you look at the other side of the fields are in really good shape. Pad 2, similar thing. We're looking at our wear areas. This area here, wear areas, but they're localized thinning areas. No bare spots. Pad 3, same thing. You might see some white sandy areas here. Those aren't holes. Those are areas that were either thin turf or there might have been a hole there at one point. We've hand graded those, packed them with sand, so a little mini top dress. But if you see this field, Pad 3, this year we still have a good wear pattern going in the middle, but comparatively to 2022, this field has started performing a lot better through the maintenance practices. I forgot to mention on the side here, this is our estimated park or field use hours per pad. This includes our community use. So this is our programming and basic field rentals. Our tournaments, we're still working on calculating those for 23. You can figure add another 50, 60 hours per pad for tournament use. Pad 4, similar thing. We're looking for areas of worn, and then we're also seeing nice consistent turf through a predominantly large area of the pad. Not the case back in 2022. We had some issues with major wear on that field. This is a field that graded a C for us, mainly because you're not localized now. You have areas of wear through this entire field. So this will be one of those fields that we're going to have to address as we get into the spring season, possibly take offline a little bit longer to get it going. 339 hours of estimated use. Relatively speaking, though, the turf is still at an upgraded stance from what we're seeing here. You see a lot of areas of discoloration. So we got a clean plain surface growing in. Pad A. So we've done this for all the fields. Here's Pad 9 and 10. That photo that I showed you with the top dressing, that's what that area looked like overhead when we top dressed it. We didn't get the drone back up for that next week, but as you saw in the other close-up shot, the sand had all leveled down and incorporated into the turf. Again, this area is right along the parking lot, so even back in 2022, that area was a concern and an issue. If you look at this area, though, the gold mouse are also issues. We've cleaned those areas up on this recent shot. 11 and 12, similar thing. If you notice, these pads, the hours are kind of jumping up a little bit. These are the pads that we have our rental agreement with Central Florida Soccer Club, so they get used a little bit more than our pads up to the south of the complex. But for all that use, if we're looking at the field condition, we have some areas that we've hand treated, but overall turf, we got good coverage. We've gotten rid of our big main wear pattern in the middle of the fields. So those are looking pretty good. And then our best fields are definitely 13, 14, 15, 16. A couple reasons for this. If you notice, hours are way lower on these fields. There currently are only lights on pad 16. So there's a good portion of the year that we can't use these fields because it's dark out. So, I mean, again, looking at the turf, we've got solid, consistent turf running throughout there. And then we also, we visit other surrounding parks, and, we try and benchmark our practices against what else is out there. These are all photos that were taken from surrounding areas, other agencies, similar style park and rec fields. But we're in the winter. Every complex is dealing with issues of weeds, bare spots, repairs needed. There's what our complex looks like in the same time frame. So we do have areas, as you can see down at the bottom, we have areas that we're addressing, we're working on, but we also have a lot of coverage on the fields, as you saw on the overheads, that are in good condition, strong, healthy. As we continue to grow into the growing season, they're going to rebound quickly for us. So with that, I'll answer any questions, any concerns, comments.
Any questions?
I guess really from the presentation, the first table that you showed, and then going through the different pads, it's safe to say that the expectation should be every single pad is a grade B or higher.
Correct.
None of the hours went over 600 with the exception of pads 9 and 10. So the expectation really from where we sit and from what
Correct.
we're probably presenting is that they should be B or higher.
Correct. And to get to that A level, that's where we look at usage times. And as you saw, pads 13, 14, 15, 16, they fall under that 200 hour. And those fields, we were able to grade an A. B and C, B should be the target. We're going to slip to C sometimes, and that could be dependent on weather. It could be dependent on extra use that we've put on that field. It could depend on a variety of things. We went from a very dry summer drought issue to a very wet winter, and we've had some issues with that as well. So, but yeah, A, B is where we like to live. D is where we close a field.
Yeah, and just thank you and the staff and Najee and Rod for meeting. What was that, last week? We all got in the room
Yeah, I
together.
think so. Yeah, last week.
And it wasn't an easy conversation. There was some pride of ownership, pride of use, dialogue going back and forth, but thank you for getting to a point where you all walked the fields Friday and got to a space where they could at least get their practices started going again. But this is helpful for the general public to see, because it's not just, the soccer club, right? We've heard from other people talking about some of the recreational fields and things like that, but it's good to be able to point to say, you can quantify what you're trying to get to in terms of field quality. So,
Right. And as I mentioned, our park superintendent is ultimately responsible for the care of the parks and athletic fields. We have resources that we bring in to help assist with that. His assessment has a lot of value, but we also need to value the assessment of our third party to come in and do our grading system, and then our athletic division, who utilizes the fields, can grade them as well. There's always a push-pull between athletics and parks, because athletics wants to use the field year-round. Parks has to try and maintain the field year-round. So there's always that kind of back and forth. We've taken steps over the last year and a half to start implementing some of these changes as far as like field closures, maintenance times, rest times, where we didn't have those in the past. So we don't want to turn the faucet completely off, but we've started to incorporate some of those adjustments to, again, help get those fields the best we can for the use that we're getting out of them.
So just one question, because I saw 200 hours, 400. How do you keep track of those hours?
So everything's scheduled through our scheduling system. So, and we know exactly who we're putting out for our programming. So whether it's our internal programming, our rentals, those things are pretty easy to determine. Our tournaments we're working through still, because a tournament might book 10 hours on a Saturday, but in all reality, they used 8. So we have other documentation we got to go through tournament by tournament to determine exactly, all right, we booked 10, but we only used 8 on this day. So, but that's how we get the average. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's part of the next steps, getting that data in a better system so we can more readily pull it out.
So if you have an organization that has exceeded those hours, are you allowing them to use other pads? How is that working?
So right now, we're in a data phase. So I'm grabbing as much information as we can. Obviously, we've graded the fields, and except for one field that we put as a C, we're in that B range, really pretty solid with some localized areas. From there, we have our hours of use. We can make determinations on, all right, what do we want to put our field usage at? And then from there, the groups that have rental space, can we give them more space? Do we need to move them to a different field? Do we have another field available? One of the things that we've talked about through this process and spoke with Coach Najee as well is we have 16 pads out at the field. That doesn't mean we have 16 pads available at one time. So there's going to be times where we need to have a couple pads down for extra rest or maintenance. So we can't be renting 16 fields at once. It's more like 13, 12, depending on the season. So, but those are all things that as we're moving through and getting the data lined up and this process in place, we'll start being able to make those determinations.
And what type of grass do we have?
We have Bermuda grass. Yeah.
I'm sorry, well, repeat that again?
Grass. What grass turf we use? Bermuda.
Oh, okay.
And I highlighted soccer because that was a big topic lately, but the same system will go in for our baseball fields starting in July. So again, those are going to get graded as well. The more information, the more data, the more we have to build a record, the better we'll be able to make determinations on whether our maintenance practices are appropriate, whether they need to be adjusted. But that also includes the weather aspects as well. But we got to have that information to make those decisions.
Mr. Nestor?
Yeah, just wanted to thank you and your team for diving in this deep to this. This really does help, this data collecting and all that, and you guys are putting in a lot of work to it. So I really appreciate staff for doing this, your team really stepping up and doing this, and it's going to create a proactive approach versus reactive, which I feel we've been a little bit in the past. So I think we're heading in the right direction there. I appreciate a lot of our vendors being patient with us as well as we navigate this, but I really think we're heading in the right direction now. So appreciate you taking the time to do this and your team really behind the scenes making it happen. So
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you.
All right. Thank you, Radley. Appreciate it. Okay, public comment. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, Chief Kinley. Bring the team.
Mayor, Commissioners, thanks for having us today. I'd like to take credit for this, but I'm not going to. Officer Sosa, over my right shoulder, is the one that came to me a while back, asked about implementing this program in the Apopka Police Department in the city of Apopka. I told him to run with it. He's done a terrific job carrying the ball and getting us to this point where we're ready to implement this program. So with that, I only have 2 stickers right now. The others are in order. They should be in any day, so I'm going to hand them to you. You can see what they look like, but you're going to have to share them amongst each other. And I'll leave it over to Officer Sosa.
Oh,
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and everyone else in here. My name is Emmanuel Sosa. I'm an officer at the Apopka Police Department. I also have the privilege of being a traffic homicide investigator, field training officer.
Get closer.
Get closer.
You move it up. There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. A field training officer and also part of the emergency response team. And a little bit more about myself. My favorite baseball team is the Tampa Bay Rays, for those who like other sports. And football team is going to be the Dolphins. So just a little bit about me personally. So today I'll be taking a few moments of your time, and I thank you for your patience in advance. Is to talk about the special needs registry program that, with the help of our staff, leadership, and thankfully, Chief Michael McKinley, we're able to bring this initiative to the police department and the city of Apopka. So the special needs registry program, it means a lot to me. It hits home because I have a lot of family members who are persons with disabilities and or autism. And on top of that, over the course of the past 6 years in my career, we respond to so many calls for service where we are dealing with these people one-on-one. And a lot of our calls for service, thankfully, have been resolved in a peaceful manner. We go into these calls for service blind a lot of the times, and or with lack of information thereof, which doesn't allow us to go to these calls for service with as much information as possible. So a lot of the services that we provide as the police department has to do with information that we receive from either a third-party person or information that we have collected in the past that can go into our databases. Again, big thanks to Chief McKinley for allowing me to bring this to the agency. And I'll go ahead and start. So the state of Florida this year, January 1st, has launched a House bill that essentially authorizes law enforcement agencies to have a database for a special needs registry. That is House Bill 1275. So this is a quick PowerPoint that I created. It's for the special needs registry, and it'll just go in briefly go into detail as to what we'll be bringing to the city. So our goal, the Apopka Police Department is committed to the security and safety of all its residents. The more information that officers have when responding to calls for service, the better they're able to meet our residents' needs. And the program will allow the Apopka Police Department to work cooperatively with the public in order to provide a safe community and reduce the chances of a misunderstanding or miscommunication during an emergency call for service. The mission of the Apopka Police Department Autism and Persons with Disability Program is to alert emergency responders such as police officers, firefighters, and medical technicians of a person with autism or other special needs in a home or a vehicle. Again, to go more into our mission, the decal that you see on the bottom left of the screen, it enables officers of the Apopka Police Department to be aware that there is a person in a home or a vehicle that may include but not limited to the following, and then it's limited communication, limited mobility, deaf, blind, intellectual disabilities, autistic, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and have epilepsy or seizure disorders. This decal, or the decal that's on the bottom left, enables officers of the Apopka Police Department to be aware of cues that can be present at the time of a call for service, such as, but not limited to, being overwhelmed by police presence, reacting with fight or flight responses, not responding to stop or other verbal commands, having delayed speech and language skills, not responding to their own name, avoiding any eye contact, having sensory perception issues, and hiding or wandering off. A lot of the calls, specifically with hiding and wandering off, a lot of the calls for service that the Apopka Police Department responds to is going to be a missing person, someone who is wandering off from their residence. We get a call from either family or any other bystander that's a part of this community and calls and is more because they're concerned about a person who's walking and appears to be lost. So this will allow us to track as best as we can to meet the residents' needs and be able to identify someone who may have wandered off from a house. And then having an impairment and engaging in repetitive behavior. If a first responder is able to identify that a child or adult may be experiencing one or several of these indicators, he or she then can respond in a way that best supports the individual. So what is the Special Needs Registry? It's a couple of things, but initially it's going to be a spreadsheet that's kept both at the police department and at our a dispatch center that's in the building next over. It's going to be an at-risk report, and that is just the name that Seminole County, the system that we use is with Seminole County. So they classified the report as at-risk, and that is how we are going to track our reports going forward for the special needs registry. On top of the at-risk report that we also have a separate system, which is our calls for service system. And there will be a hazard icon on the top right of our calls for service system, which will allow us dispatch, us as in police, and dispatch to be aware of the residents we may be responding to or a person that we may be in contact with. So with that, there's 2 stickers. I have them. Did you get them already? Okay. Okay, perfect. I have some more here that I wanted to present to you guys, but if you saw them, excellent. So the 2 stickers that we provide to the residents who would like to inquire about this, they will either go in the front of a home or a vehicle. And to participate in this program, the resident must reside in the city of Apopka, either part-time or full-time. And they must require additional assistance or consideration during an emergency situation or calls for service. So again, what to look out for on the field as far as us and our fire department personnel. We're going to have a hazard screen on our specific CAD. We're still working with the fire department so that they can have essentially the same exact information that we have, so that whenever they're responding to calls for service, because a lot of times the fire department responds to calls that we don't, and vice versa. So our goal is to share the information with the fire department with their calls for service system, so that they can be aware of the same information as far as us. And as soon as an officer responds to a residence or sees a vehicle when there's a sticker on either the vehicle or the front door, it just immediately allows us to understand and know that or the type of situation that we're going into. This is an example of the front door of a residence of where the sticker can be placed. And then this is an example of the vehicle and where the sticker can be placed. The reason why we suggest to put the sticker in the rear end of the vehicle is because a lot of our contacts statistically is going to be either by a traffic stop, by approaching a residence where vehicles are driven into the driveway and or into a parking space. And this allows us immediately to know that there may be someone with disabilities or autism inside of the vehicle. So just a quick look at our CAFE system. This is our report database that we have. And this is just an example of information that we will collect upon completing this report per person with disability or autism who's interested. And in the narrative section, you will find more detailed information such as like disability, medication, what calms them or places them or places they frequent, any hazard that's in the home, and emergency contact. That's the biggest thing for us is emergency contact. So if an officer comes across someone who they think should participate in the program, initially what we're going to do is obtain their name, address, and contact information. We're going to encourage them to sign up, and this is just for our tracking purposes, and provide them with a physical application. So with me, I have a physical application that I'm going to present to you guys in just a second. And on top of the physical application, you'll see a brochure that we've created as well. And this brochure is going to be placed in as many places as we can possibly place them. For example, the police department or any public places that will allow us to do so. That way, when our residents are going to places of business or the police department, they can see this information. So sharing information, going back to the House bill, I think upon mentioning this to several people, the concern is the confidentiality of the persons with special needs. And the House bill protects and it exempts any information of a special needs person or a person with autism to be shared. So the information that we obtain and we track in our systems will only be shared with other first responders, such as other police departments or other fire departments. And so just to touch on some other things, we have created a policy at the police department, and part of our policy is also going to include to audit this on an annual basis. So I know a lot of times people can move to the city and move out of the city well within a year, sometimes 6 months. So our goal is to audit and obtain as much information as possible. So if the person did move out of the city, we can put that into the same report that we generated and make sure that that's not a foreseeable risk whenever we respond to the house and there's another resident that may live there. And just quickly on future projects, I couldn't do everything at once because I was told I might have been doing a little too much. But future projects, so when we first apply here, we're given these small cards here, and it has our 10 codes and signals and stuff like that, just codes that we communicate with as law enforcement. My goal is to bring one of these cards here that has a way to communicate with a nonverbal person. So it's gonna say an example like call parent. It's gonna have an example as I'm lost, and just different pictures that we can communicate with people who are nonverbal that will allow us to help them as best as possible. And then hopefully my chief will approve this, but my goal is to work with a company who's willing to wrap one of our emergency vehicles. By wrapping, I mean it's essentially kind of like painting, but it's a wrap that goes on top of the car and can be removed whenever you want. It won't affect any of the paint of the car, and it'll allow us to show that we have an active interest in persons with disabilities and autism, and we're willing to be there as a presence. And then a quick closing statement before any questions that anyone may have. So there's 3 things that this special needs registry is intended for, and it's for the collection of information, which will allow us to utilize the intelligence and build a relationship with the community. And all the 3 things and everything that I presented so far is ultimately to make the community a safer place and enhance the quality of life for all citizens. So at this time, any questions, if any?
Sure. Commissioner Velasquez?
Okay. First, I want to say thank you to you because, like you, I have a brother who's autistic and is an epileptic also. So, and he just turned 69 years old. We faced many challenges over the decades with him. But you're right, because when you see them, there's nothing that says they're autistic until they start to speak. They have certain mannerisms. So this is good in the right direction. We do have some organizations here in the city that do cater to the special needs. That would be a good way for you to partner with them so that you can, speak to them and they can help you out as to, how to make this program work. I am concerned about the privacy for these residents, because that is important. You don't want them to stand out and be singled out. But what if someone wants just a sticker to kind of identify that they have a family member that is autistic or falls within the category that you have, but they don't want to register them? Would they be allowed to have that sticker?
That's a good question. I think that we as the police department will still do our best to try to track as much information as we can. I know that if the person does not want to be included in any type of report, it'll just be a matter of getting that approved and getting the person the sticker that they want.
I'm sorry. We're not going to stop anybody from participating in the program. Obviously, the more information we have, the better we can respond to that resident and the person that may have special needs. One of the things you'll notice is we have 2 different decals. That was done deliberately because those with special needs don't always react sometimes to law enforcement presence as those with autism. And autism is a spectrum that affects them from birth all the way up, through their entire life. And throughout those processes, they can react differently depending on their age and other things. So we felt it was important to distinguish autism in those residents and those cars so that there are different ways that we can approach them. I am proud of the fact that we take our autism training further above most law enforcement agencies, as we actually have some of the organizations that you mentioned come in during our autism training. We do it every 2 years, and they actually bring autistic people into the training. So every one of our officers has an opportunity to interact with an autistic individual and try to communicate with that individual and try to see how the different spectrums react to our interaction. So I think that's very beneficial. Every one of our officers, with the exception of the most recently hired ones, has been through crisis intervention training, which teaches them where resources in our community are and how to deal with those that are experiencing some kind of mental health situation or a disability. That's a 40-hour class that's put on by a third-party vendor that we attend everybody with. So we won't deny anybody access to the program, but obviously we will try to explain to them that the more information we have, it is going into our secure database. Not everybody can get into our CAD system where the information is going to be placed. We are going to work on placing it in the fire department's CAD system so they have the same information if they respond to a call, like Officer Sosa said, that we don't. So.
And what about going into some of the communities that Hispanic community? Because you know that a lot of the Hispanic community, they're very close-knit and they don't like to share too much. So is there some effort to try and get to some of those communities to make sure that they know about this program?
Yes, I think that the more we respond to calls for service, specifically in those communities, it would allow us to speak to them and make them aware. On top of this, and I didn't mention it earlier, one of my goals in the near future is to attempt to work with a news agency to be able to advertise this information as best as possible so that we can get whoever is interested involved.
Right. And to kind of have this in different languages.
Correct.
Because I think we very popular with Creole and of course Spanish here in the city of Apopka. But I just want to say thank you. This is a really good program. And this is coming from someone who actually has dealt with someone who is autistic. And for me, I can recognize that because I've been dealing with it all my life. But I really do appreciate that our police department is making great strides in dealing with our special needs community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Yeah, thank you for your leadership on this.
Yeah.
You know, and to your point, Commissioner Velasquez, I think the registry is more to the spirit of the bill. It's called Protect Our Loved Ones.
Yeah.
And it's
Yes.
really, you know, and it's a voluntary thing, right? It's people that realize that you have someone with developmental disabilities. And, you know, and I serve with Quest. I think that's the organization that you're referring to. And we serve people with developmental disabilities. We serve 500 clients. And they run, and we always say that autism is the brand name of developmental disabilities because that's what people know by name. But there's literally hundreds of developmental disabilities that people deal with day in and day out. And a lot of those are nonverbal. So I can only imagine from a police interaction when you're expecting a lot of behaviors based off of verbal commands and that person is not verbal in response, it can create a very unique situation, if you will.
Correct.
So it's good to see that. And, you know, the state of Florida is 49th out of 50 in terms of funding for individuals with developmental disabilities. So anything that we can do as a city that's lower cost but still provides a necessary service for those that do have developmental disabilities, I think is just, it's admirable that you're already kind of taking this and running with it, even, you know, as this bill is brand new. So appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Smith?
Well, I likewise want to commend you for taking the initiative to bring this program forward. Being a former educator, I taught students with autism and with disabilities as well, and was a part of establishing a program called Special Hearts Farm for those students with autism and disabilities. And so I think this is a great program we have, and I wish you much success.
Thank you.
Mr. Nesta?
Just to echo the same thing, thank you so much for this. Do not take this lightly. This is a big deal and something that is well beyond what other, I think, municipalities are doing. So it's very cool to be on the front lines of that. I think people are going to start copying exactly how you're doing it too. You're kind of building that framework that I think other municipalities are going to start copying. So that's really cool. And I think that's what we're doing is basically taking an individualistic and collaborative approach, working with our residents as you guys are doing calls. And I think that is absolutely incredible. And we're providing a higher level of service for our residents. Two quick questions. One is, when the police department is dealing with or have calls with homeless individuals, Is there something that we can kind of bridge this program with that to, because some homeless individuals have similar issues that we all have issues. So is there something that would be to where they might not have a sticker, but within your own database, it states that they have some tendencies this way or that way or on the spectrum, whatever it may be?
Most of our officers are very familiar with our homeless population because we do encounter and understand what most of their mental disabilities are. We can look at some way to interact. I mean, we do have constant contact with them, and we do know those that suffer from mental incapacitation or mental disorders. But we'll look at something to try to address that. Yes, sir.
I just think it would help. And then to the other one, is there a way to, I know this is the police department's program, and you guys are very proud to partner with the fire department as well, because they're kind of, they're working with similar individuals, things like that, so that they could also be either dropping these applications off, have them in their own trucks as well. Would that make sense to?
Yeah, we are working with the fire department. As Officer Sosa said, we're working on making sure the same information is in their database.
Sure.
In addition to Officer Sosa coming up with this program, he's also volunteered to maintain the program. So kudos to him.
Yes.
For everything that he's involved in. I'll cover it real quick. I know he hit you with 2 other projects. We do try to rein him in so we can focus on one thing at a time and get it done, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But I'm sure we'll allow him to continue his efforts in what he wants to do. He's doing some great things.
Excellent. Yeah, and that kind of leads me to a final question there, is that the kind of nonverbal communications card, I think, please go forward with that. And then additionally, I guess with that is what kind of additional funding is needed to market this correctly? I think those are all kind of the questions here of how can we get this out and really market it to individuals specifically?
Well, we are going to use our social media, the city social media,
Sure.
to get this out there. I think, I've already had one, the Apopka chief reached out to me today about the project. So I think that we'll continue to have media outlets want to cover what is going on here. But again, it's not necessarily about the coverage. It's making sure that we provide the right service to our residents who do suffer from some type of disability. So
Okay.
we will do our best to get it out. We'll work with Commissioner Becker with his organization and use that as a fund. The organizations that come and teach us for our autism training, we can work with them to make sure it's out there too. One of the biggest challenges is going to be that, our database only covers the residents of the city of Apopka, so we have to restrict it to the residents of the city of Apopka. But I suspect that all law enforcement agencies with the new bill are going to come out with similar like projects. I know that Captain King was in a class and he used this as a presentation. And it was well received by numerous law enforcement agencies that wanted our policy. We do have a policy in place before we implemented it, so the officers know what to do and what they can and can't do with the information. All that is in place prior to the implementation of the program.
Gotcha. All right, well, if there's any additional funding that is needed to market this properly, if you guys feel there's any outlets that we're missing, let us know, because this is just a great program. So thank you again.
So far, we were able to cover the stickers out of our own budget.
Well, here, take these back, 'cause I don't want to have to pay twice.
Well, if I can unpack Commissioner Ness's question about the fire, maybe he's just wanting a fire sticker instead of the police sticker.
I'm just saying, they may not want these in their truck. Specifically, it says police department.
I have to tell you, I am not going to pay for a fire department sticker.
Heard.
They can use our stickers.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just like to kind of give you my background. So before I became an elected official, I served on the police. We looked at the police brutality under the Citizens Review Committee for Orange County. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, we had an individual who was a grown man, but had, a very, very, elementary IQ. And so anyway, his mom would lock the house at night to make sure he didn't get out at night. But just one night, this individual got out of the house, started wandering the neighborhood, and the houses all looked pretty much similar. So somewhere he figured out he was lost. So he goes to the first house that looks like his, goes to the front door to open it, and it doesn't open, it's locked. So it's one of their neighbors. So he's starting to panic. So he starts pulling the door. Well, the lady behind the door panics, calls 911. And so, the police officers come, and never forget, so they had a hedge on either side of the driveway, or excuse me, of the sidewalk going up to the front door. And so the officers go barreling up to the front door, and this individual, the only way out was right down the same path the officers were going up. So middle of the night, they think it's, a bad guy, and they take out the batons and knock him to the ground. And, and so we looked at that. So, what could we do, or what could the sheriff's department do to help with that? So 20 years ago, we came up with a wristband. That was our kind of the precursor to what you're doing now is the wristband. Had he had a wristband that we knew that he was challenged, that the officers would have treated this individual different. So, yeah, it's a great program, and I in my own mind, I just go through that every time I hear something similar. I go, I remember that, because the mother and the son came to this hearing that we were putting on, and we said, ma'am, I said, as much as it's not a tragedy, but it could have been a tragedy. I mean, the officers had every right to do more than they did. I said, but we've got to fix this. And so that was what we came up was the wristband. But this will take it to a whole nother level that I'm really proud of what you've done and given the chief giving you the rope to take it and run with it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And in closing, I'd just like to, again, thank Officer Sosa for bringing this forward, and kudos to him for everything he's done and all the hard work he's done, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Susan, public comment.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I've spoken up here before, so just to recap a little bit, but my name is Andrew Reyes, and the owner and founder of the fitness company, nutrition company, event company of the Oak is the company name. And I just want to give you all a quick recap about my event series that I ran last year of 2023 recap and the success that was behind that, and then give you kind of a precursor to the same event series that I'll be running this year. So my goal with my company is to create an atmosphere and an opportunity for this city, for the community, and surrounding communities to create an opportunity for just an active lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle. And with that, I've created an event series that throughout the entire year, from March all the way through December, there are 6 different events that are unique to themselves, unique to the next, that will create this atmosphere that within city limits, people can come, be active, sign up for whether it's a workout event. I know 2 of the 6 events were kind of tribute workouts. We call them hero workouts to honor those that are fallen. There is a lot of there's a lot of support and much more meaning than just a regular 5K behind it. I know we ran one of our most successful events was our turkey trot in November that we ran. We had the 12K of Christmas that we were really happy about. So all the events from 2023, we had over 200 people registered and show up to the city parks. And especially specific thank you to Radley Williams for the program that your team is running right now to maintain the pads. Because the next event that we're running here in March, kind of the season opener, if you will be utilizing one of the pads that he had mentioned. So thank you to Radley and his team. But with this next year, we have all the same events that we're going to be doing again. The first one is March 8th. It's called the Oak Challenge. So it's kind of very specific to the opening of my company officially. And it's open to everybody, open to the public. That's kind of our series opener to the 6 events that we'll be running this year. So we have one in March, May, July, September, November, and December. So I'll be back discussing the rest of those. Not expecting you to remember any of those, but just to recap all of those, and really excited to continue to encourage a healthy lifestyle, active lifestyle within city limits. Because the reason I made this event series is growing up as an athlete and just as an adult having wanting to sign up for races. 95% of the time, I would have to sign up outside of city limits. There wasn't an active events within the city. So I'm trying to create that for this community. So we're excited to host another year of successful events in the city, and we'll hopefully see you March 8th coming up. Any questions on that?
The March 8th event, what does that entail? What is that, a race, like a run?
It is not a run. It's a workout event style. There's running involved. My goal is a kind of a full fitness challenge. So there are some dumbbells involved. There's some running involved. A variety of movements, but yeah, some exercises that are combined with exercises combined with running is my shortest version of explaining that. But yeah, so of the 6 events, that's a good question. So of the 6 events, the first 3 events that I host are going to be more workout style, and then the back 3, the latter 3, will be races. So that just hopefully appeals to all different types of people, and with all this too, as a fitness professional, my goal is to. Oh no. Sorry. My goal is to appeal to all different levels. I'm not expecting you to only be a top athlete to be able to participate in these events. I really want to encourage the healthy lifestyle for any level, any age.
Where do we go to sign up?
I'm sorry?
Where do we go to sign up?
It'll be on my website, so it's theoakcommunity.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
No? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
I will see you all there. Signed up, ready to go.
Nikki McGuire.
Okay, it's a big difference. Good afternoon, commissioners, Mayor Nelson, and everyone. Do you remember the good old days when you played outside and had a blast until parents came looking for you because it was dark outside? It was a little after the dinosaurs, but before video games and social media. I'm almost 50, so of course I remember. So I'm here today to tell you to save the date for May 11th to have outdoor fun at Naomi Kids' free annual Family Fun Day. It will be held at Kitland Nelson Park. We moved the date up to beat the hurricane season. Last year, you guys saw we had to reschedule due to the bad weather. I am super excited as Naomi Kids this year will be celebrating 10 years of helping local families here in Apopka. So at this event, we will be giving away bicycles, helmets, and toys, plus more games and activities than last year, including a dance competition. Y'all can all sign up. We still need more vendors and sponsors. Please email events@naomikids.com or call 407-883-5585. I want to take this opportunity to thank each of the commissioners up here, Sergeant Wiggins and our Apopka PD, of course, my favorite chief. Hi, Chief. And our Captain Holderfield and the fire department, and Chief, hello. And our team of volunteers for everyone for your commitment to making this event bigger and better than last year. Thank you, and looking forward to see every one of you there. We're gonna have more information on social media and on the website. So this is just a save the date for now, but stay tuned. Thank you.
Most importantly, who's in the dunk tank this year?
I don't want to put anybody on blast, but so I'm not going to call names, but someone in the back with a white shirt, no hair on the head, has volunteered. So I'm challenging someone over there with no hair who was in the dunk tank last year. So maybe we could have a police department versus fire department face off. Right? I promise. It wasn't me. He asked the question. I answered. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move it back up for the next guest.
Rod Olson, 3156 Rolling Hills Lane, Apopka. First of all, Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for what you do. Thank you guys for Saturday Sounds. It was an incredible show this weekend. Those of you who didn't get there, it's an incredible event. A special thank you to Commissioner Becker for bringing Central Florida Soccer Club, Najee, Chuck, Radley, and Donnie together. A very fruitful meeting that we had last week. Certainly, there's been more work done in those fields in the last 10 days. It's been done a long time. They're really coming around, and appreciate the commitment you guys have in moving forward. Good news, bad news. The good news is it's being done. The bad news is it takes a squeaky wheel to get the grease. I look back in my notes. I've been talking about this for a year. Somehow, about 60 people emailed and called you guys, and guess what? We have action. So thank you. And coming out of the meeting and what I've heard today, I'm very optimistic about the future and what we're going to be doing. I'll swift a little bit because this post is up first, so I'm going to cover this a little bit. The importance of having Central Florida Soccer Club is demonstrated by this. If you take a quick look at other clubs, they spend average is $22.25 in fees, 350 uniforms, $855 in additional fees, for a total of $3,340 as an average for those clubs. Central Florida, one of the top clubs in the state, is only $14.45 for fees, $250 for uniforms. There's no additional fees, for a total of $16.20. To join another club for our children, we have some that do it. It's double to go elsewhere. In addition, which is not reflected by this, Central Florida offers $300 discount for those returning players, in addition to $100 off fees if it's paid in full up front. When you look at our fields, 2006, we had 35,853 according to net internet residents in Apopka. We had 16 pads. At the end of 2023, we had 58,293 residents in Apopka, which equates in today's world 26 pads in order to treat the same number of people. We need to move forward on getting more fields so they can be properly rested. Again, as I said, it's important that we keep this club viable. And how do I move to the next slide? Just the arrows? Okay, these next slides is what I saw Saturday morning. Signage is very critical. You see field closed. That field closed, the first one top left, is field 9, the worst field as identified by everyone, people on it. The other fields you take a look at says field closed, and there's tape everywhere, which means for any other coach or anyone walking by saying, well, I guess those signs don't mean anything. The last picture, the bottom left, you can see, I guess you only see there's 4 cars, none of them with handicap stickers, all parked on the lawn, which says it's critical that we have rangers and our park personnel take care of business. I had a nice conversation with Radley. They're looking at filling a couple ranger positions. And Chuck, I did follow your direction. I called a ranger to get the people off the field. I sent an email Saturday morning when I got back home to Radley. He responded within probably a couple hours. I came back later. I was gone all day. Came back later in the day. All the signs and tape was down. I think it's important that the signs match. People on the pads, the signs should not be up. I want to thank again everyone for your involvement. I want to thank all the parents of Central Florida Football Club by engaging and sending information because it's gotten some action. And again, thank you to Radley, Donnie, Chuck, and team. Awesome response. Thank you.
Good evening. Leroy Bell, Maud Helen. Well, today I come in and I see you were paying a tribute to Mr. Lorenzo Williams that used to be the city council. Just a few weeks ago, we laid my mother to rest. And again, these boot-mouth, subservient ministers of the South Apopka over there made a mockery of my mother's funeral. When she was first announced that she passed away, the mockery started with the mayor's wife, somebody that didn't even know my mother. My mother didn't even deal with the people that you guys deal with, especially the women that you call activists that work in South Apopka, the ones that crawl around in these developers' pockets for change, and the ones that you call your so-called experts. My mom spoke, her sobriety was sober. She spoke with a clear mind, a sober mind. And I don't know why in the world, whoever gave you that around your neck to wear, you need to take it off. You got in Martin Luther King parade, waving again. Nothing, not nothing you have done to help the people from South Apopka. Nothing. No more than get these people that you call, that you're going to use for a tool to run for office. It makes no sense. None whatsoever. I think the preacher, I know you said the God called you to preach. I can't kick against that. I don't know what God told you to do. But he didn't tell you to be subservient to this mayor. He didn't. I think one of the lyrics I wrote a song said, I won't complain. Some of the lyrics say that his good days outweigh his bad days, but not here in Apopka. I beg to differ. The bad days outweigh the good days. If you think I'm lying, let's look at the receipts. Look at Channel 9 News. The last episode, the last 20 episodes that came across the news about Apopka, have they been good? I told you once before, it's always something. And though I'll be remiss if I didn't say, Rep, you might become the mayor of Apopka, but it didn't belong in my mother's funeral. No, Jerome Miller, didn't nobody have you on the program to escort this man down the aisle. Why don't you stand up off your back and stop being subservient to this man right here? No, don't shake your head.
Next up.
With the wrong one. Yeah, I said it. And I meant it. Tell everything else, I'm gonna tell him.
Ace Wood and 47 East Magnolia Street, Apopka. I want to start off real quick. Radley, we never added sand to our yards to fix a sandy problem. We usually added some peat or something else, so maybe you better talk to someone else different. Sand don't help build ball fields up and grow grass. Plus, Apopka once again did some other things, Radley. We had ball fields, 4 of them, at the corner of Martin and Park Avenue. The lights are still there. But we took the fields down, tore the concession down, and now we mow it on city time, taxpayer time. Those would be good ball fields to practice on, to help take kids off the other ones. We had Edwards Field, had a ball field from the 1920s. Semi-pro ball players played there. People came from St. Cloud on wagons driven by horses to watch the boys play on Sundays out there. Y'all tore the damn thing down. It's a historical monument. First time I ever played baseball in my life for a team was right there. And if you grew up in Apopka, that's where you played your first ball game. We also got ball fields down at Alonzo Williams Park. Do we use them? Does our Little League fields use them? We got soccer fields and ball fields down there. Guys, all I'm saying is there's a way to handle things without abandoning it. You ain't got to take the history of Apopka and throw it in no dadgum trash can. Like the mayor sitting up here, he came in office in 2018. He stood up and he asked for everybody's vote. He said, I'm coming in because the Mayor Joe Kilsheimer, misappropriated. That's his words. I'm quoting Brian Nelson. The city funds millions of dollars. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to save Apopka. I'm going to save it by getting our money back and building our revenue back up. So the first thing, he told me how he's going to do it. Shake your head yes or no and tell me if I'm lying. I'm going to go to every administrator in their department and ask them for a resume. If they're not worth it, they're gone. Without any qualifications, the first man he picked on was the fire chief. Got rid of him, said he was a liar, a thief, was no good. Look at the fire department budget where he started at in 2018. He got rid of a training officer. Apparently, the training officer didn't even think very much of his job because he got appointed to the fire chief. For 3 years until the death of Austin Duran, the Apopka Fire Department had no training officer. It wasn't even in the budget because the training officer got a new job. And our mayor had no clue about what to do about it. I'll tell you what to do about it. Adhere to other people's decisions to help you make decisions. That's why we vote on the 4 of y'all to help this guy that can't do his job. And he laughs at y'all and tell you your ceremonial votes. The dictatorship of this man here cost the life of a young man. Our firefighters are still at 90%, not 85%, of disapproval of their administration. Brian Nelson says, oh, I'm not doing nothing about it. Is it going to take the death of another firefighter or a citizen before I know it, Brian, I'm done. Remember, we got to re-vote him out of here.
Albert McKinney.
Thank you. Thank you.
Albert McKinney, 3603 Golden Gem Road. Recent events have again reduced the credibility of this administration to that of a laughingstock. Over a year ago, I challenged the then city attorney over the First and Fourth Amendment rights to be secure in our persons and papers when visiting City Hall. Now the results can be viewed all over the internet of just how incompetent this city administration is. This administration continuously violates our rights. Brian Nelson refused to allow us to table a resolution on today's agenda regarding the validity of paperwork of 2 candidates running for election. I look at the agenda today and I see very little on it, yet we were prevented from appearing today with a presentation. So, Mayor John Land has already set a precedent in respect of a judicial evaluation when he brought Bill Arrowsmith's candidacy for review. We have lobbied this administration to seek the same for Nadia Anderson and Eric Mock and have been ignored. If our group sought judgment against the city, we have been quoted $15,000, a sum we cannot afford. If I personally raised an action against the city, it would only cost hundreds of dollars, but would expose me to liability for any costs incurred due to my lack of experience or knowledge. I believe our current city attorney, Cliff Shepherd, may already have experience of suing a group through his work with Satellite Beach. We certainly don't want to end up in the same category. Commissioners, not only does the Mayor view your position as ceremonial, he now treats us electorate with the same disdain. You were elected as a measure of checks and balances to prevent this. This issue should have nothing to do with your personal opinions. You took an oath of office to represent us. I have given you written details of my concerns and spoke of the situation at last council meeting. Your refusal to acknowledge the concerns publicly is a real cause for concern. I fully accept that this puts you in a difficult position. However, you have intimate knowledge of the candidate's handbook and their obligations, and I apologise, but this is more important than personal feelings. This is about the legitimacy of an election. This is not about whether you desire to respond. This is about your duty to answer us today when you sum up this meeting. This election is not far off and we require to be heard. I hesitate to say this, but the public are demanding you take action on our behalf. All we are asking is that you table a motion and take a vote on what action the city needs to take on our behalf. We are not asking you to endorse our opinion, simply that you represent it as a valid concern of ours. At a recent City Hall meeting on charters, we were made aware of how little we can do with respect of holding you or the mayor accountable for actions, and we consider unacceptable. This is one of these occasions where we wish we had more power, other than the option of a recall when elected officials fail to adequately represent us. The other recourse is when you ask for our support at election time, and that's not something that represents much of a threat. Because in reality, we appreciate what you do and we understand the problems the city has. We ask for your commitment to improving the city by responding to us today. If we ignore the problem, then no matter how successful your economic policies are, we are dooming the city to more years of maladministration.
Next up, Susan.
Megan, did you want to speak on this right now?
Who?
2650 Foundation.
Oh, hi, Ms. Gail.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I stand before you on behalf of the 2650 Foundation Incorporated. 2650 is Austin's badge number, a solemn tribute to the enduring legacy of our son, Apopka firefighter Austin Duran, who tragically lost his life in service to this city. Our foundation is dedicated to upholding Austin's vision, striving to impact future generations. The 2650 Foundation has taken concrete steps to fulfill Austin's vision. This year, we are proudly to announce we will be awarding 3 full scholarships. Working with Apopka High School and Wekiva High School, we will send 1 graduating senior to the Fire Academy for firefighter minimum standards and another senior to EMT school. Additionally, we will send one of our firefighters to paramedic school in order to foster the next generation of Austin's Army. Also, we are investing in the Apopka Fire Department by sending 6 firefighters to technical certification training in vehicle machinery rescue operations, VMR. But our commitment does not end there. On March 16th, we will host a mental health fair at the Orlando Firefighters Union Hall from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This event aims to provide education, speakers, and even physical yoga sessions, offering tools to manage trauma-based stressors on the job. You are all welcome to attend. I would also like to thank this community for your commitment and continued support of Austin's Foundation. Without each and every one of you, none of this would be possible. I am proud to consider this community all members of Austin's Army. In honoring Austin's memory, the 2650 Foundation strives not just to speak, but to act, embodying accountability and commitment to a brighter, safer future for our community and our firefighters. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Mike Duran. I know that this has been very tough for you and your family, but you have given so much to our community, even as you grieve the loss of your son. And sometimes you come up and we say nothing, and we sit here in silence, but I want you to know that we do leave this day as always with your son in our thoughts. And I want to thank you, his mom, Gail, and his sister, Sierra, for all that you do in our community to continue to keep his memory alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I won't be silent either and just say that we love you and others will benefit from Austin. And that's clear that you all will continue to provide that benefit. So we love you.
All right, Susan? That's it? Okay. All right, we've got 6 consent agenda items. Does anybody need to pull any? If not, look for motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Apopka Townhomes, who's taking that one? Gene?
Good afternoon, Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to approve the Apopka Townhomes plat. The subject property is located north of 7th Street, south of East 6th Street, and west of Alabama Avenue, approximately 2.5 acres in size. The Apopka Townhomes plat is for consideration of a townhome development that comprises of 24 lots, a common area, and drainage tract. The access to the development is on 6th Street. The plat is consistent with the construction site plan approved by the Development Review Committee on October 6, 2021. The DRC recommends approval. At its meeting on September 12, 2023, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the plat. The recommended motion is to approve the Apopka Townhomes plat. Staff is available for questions.
Any questions for Gene?
Do you have a timeline on this project at all?
Do I have, I'm sorry?
A timeline, sorry. Do you know what that timeline looks like at all?
I can't. This project actually kind of stopped work a little bit for about a year and then picked back up.
Okay.
I don't know for whatever reason.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Is anybody here from Hannibal Square? Oh, once you come down and you can share your wisdom with us, please, ma'am. Thank you for coming, hanging out with us. And name and address for the record, please.
Camille Reynolds Lewis, Hannibal Square Community Land Trust, 2265 Lee Road, Suite 117, Winter Park, 32789.
So just question.
Yeah, do you have a timeline for when your project's coming? I know we did a groundbreaking.
We did the groundbreaking in July.
Okay, so July. And I learned so much about the project. Super excited about it. So excited to see it coming.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you have an updated timeline that.
Yes, we are working to get that project really started in the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
We were hoping to get everything approved with the plat. There was a concern that we were not going to be able to get the building permit in time with this plat process in order to not have to make any changes. So we were trying to hang on for a minute, but we were able to get a place marker for the building permit.
Okay.
And just to circle back, we were delayed about a year prior to because of the school board concurrency issue. And so that was another issue that we dealt with, but we are now excited and ready to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing.
My only question back to staff real quick, as we cycle through it. All required environmental studies and things like that have occurred on the property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, correct. Yep, the construction site plan came with all the studies for this project. If you remember a little bit, and even if you look at the aerial now, there was I guess before my time here, there was something that was approved on there, some starting of an infrastructure that was already starting to be constructed on there. So there was nothing really, it's my understanding Public Services had to do some things for them, but other than that, I think it's ready to go.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to put on the record that any and all environmental
Yes.
prerequisites were done and satisfactory to the progression of this business.
That's correct.
All right, anybody else? Okay, if not, close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the plat for Apopka Townhomes.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Kelly Industrial Park, Major Development Plan.
For the record, Jean Sanchez with the Planning and Zoning Division. This is a request to approve the Kelly Industrial Park Major Development Plan. The property is located at 3620 West Kelly Park Road, north adjacent of Parkview Preserve Residential Subdivision, and it's approximately 89 acres in size. The major development plan proposes the development of 7 buildings totaling over 1.5 million square feet for warehouse and other industrial uses, as well as 146 space trailer parking spaces. This serves as the industrial portion of the Wild Oaks development with ingress-egress points on Sadler and Golden Gem Road. The applicant is providing 456 parking spaces, including 19 accessible spaces, while 158 spaces plus 8 accessible spaces are required. For Phase 2, 190 parking spaces and 8 accessible spaces are required, while the applicant is providing 434 spaces, including 10 accessible spaces. Phase 3 requires 184 parking spaces and 6 accessible spaces, whereas the applicant is providing 214 spaces with 10 accessible spaces. Urban street walls to screen parking spaces along Sadler Road will be required on the northern section of Golden Gem to screen the parking spaces from view. The landscape plan proposes high-rise and Shumard oaks, magnolias, as well as winged elm and red maple trees. Winged elm and oaks line the perimeter of the project and embellish the parking islands as well. A dry retention pond will be developed in the first phase and positioned on the eastern portion of the project site adjacent to State Road 429. Project meets the minimum required open space set aside and amenity requirement of 20%, entailing a covered pavilion and benches around the retention pond. At the Planning Commission meeting on April 11, 2023, the Commission granted a variance to allow a maximum building setback of 94 feet in lieu of 20 feet from Sadler Road and 203 feet of the building setback in lieu of 20 feet from Golden Gem Road. The proposed architectural renderings meet both the Kelly Park Interchange Form-Based Code as well as the Development Design Guidelines. The DRC recommends approval, and at its meeting on January 9, 2024, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the Kelly Industrial Park Major Development Plan. The recommended motion is to approve the Major Development Plan. Staff and applicant are available for questions.
Any questions for Jean?
I just have 2 quick questions. Is this developer responsible for the Sadler Road extension all the way? Is it to 429, under 429, or just not responsible for Sadler at all? I get confused on which developers are taking which component of because this is still part of Wild Oaks, correct? It's just their
This
industrial
is
side.
the
Okay.
southern portion.
Okay.
The Wild Oaks has to build Sadler Road for them. They can't really do anything until the road's in. And I think their agreement between the two was Wild Oaks would put the road in and then they'll go forward. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And then the other question is the northwest little piece there that's not included. Is there a plan for that in the future? Will that always be green space, or what does that look like?
That's been removed from this project boundary. There is actually a plan for Wild Oaks. I do not know at this time. The applicant hasn't revealed what the end user would be, but it's part of the employment district.
Okay, gotcha.
I believe still.
All right, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jean? Anybody from the public wish to speak?
Albert McKimmey, 3603 Golden Gem Road. Just a question in respect of the extension to Sadler Road. My understanding that the extension to Sadler Road would go under the 429. If it goes under the 429 and connects to some other roads, as an industrial development, how are we going to justify what's going to happen with large vehicles which will not be able to go under the 429, or what will happen to them in the process while that's being fixed? I realize that this use probably won't go down for 2 or 3 years. But again, at this particular moment, we've got no resolution to widen Golden Gem Road. So we're going to increase the traffic on Golden Gem Road without any other subsequent access or egress to it.
We have a pioneering agreement in place. And as you'll remember, there's a series of grid roads. Sadler Road is one of them. The developer known as Wild Oaks is building Sadler Road from Golden Gem to the 429. Now, as far as trucks being able to go underneath the 429 when we finish the road, there's plenty of clearance. But the segment of Sadler from 429 to Plymouth Sorrento is under design by the city right now. So I'm hoping that the pieces all sync up at the same time. Then we'll have a connection from the existing piece of Sadler west of Golden Gem all the way over to Plymouth Sorrento. And looking at the timing, Wild Oaks has been delayed just a little bit because they're doing some things related to land development code and site plan changes. The pieces all have to work together, and the road needs to work with them. So it is my expectation that, we're all moving as fast as we can. We'll get that road in place and Effie in place too.
Good. All right. Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the major development plan for Kelly Industrial Park.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up. Jim.
This hopefully is a quick and easy one. This is just for a reappointment of Howard Washington to the Planning Commission. I do want to mention that I did miss last year for his reappointment. He is fully aware of that. So at this point in time, he's got basically another 2 years, and then hopefully he'll stay on board because he's been a very, very good addition to the Planning Commission.
Any questions for Jim?
The only question, and I forgot to ask you that yesterday. So before they come up, how does the charter read? I know that when we have an opening, we do put out a notice for interest by any of our residents, right?
Correct.
So when they're reappointed, is that opportunity open to the public, or is it at the discretion of the chair to just reappoint the person?
It's at the discretion of the chair, and then it's formalized with your vote. Typically, if there's any issues, things like that, planning staff would make some recommendations for either replacement or consideration for somebody. It's your leisure, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because one of the questions that, after I spoke to you was, are there any term limits for these advisory board appointees?
No, they can keep serving. We had, I think Jim Green was on there for somewhere around 12 or 15 years, something like that.
Jim Green was an exception. He was like a chairman
He sure
of
was. He
several
was great.
boards here. Okay. That was and you know how I felt. I mean, I personally had said that, I do watch the P&Z boards. I do watch and so I just have some concern when it's a 7-member. Is it 7? 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I see that some members are, not at the meeting. So I had a concern with, how many have
Attendance,
missed.
yeah. We are doing an update on the attendance also for the I think the last one was from April. And so
Right.
we're getting the rest of this last year for attendance we've got about 3 more appointments coming up, or reappointments coming up around July, August.
Okay. So thank you.
Sure.
And I do have a lot of respect for Mr. Washington. I do watch him on the YouTube, and he asks a lot of questions. He's very interactive, and so I appreciate his service.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jim? Anybody from the public?
Just a question, is the position of an appointed commissioner any different with regard to Florida statutes than one who's voted on?
Hand that one off to you, Cliff.
We're talking about an appointed member to the, in terms of difference, that's a pretty broad question, but if you mean in terms of application of sunshine law and public records or ethics, the answer is no. If you mean other ways, well, yeah, they don't get elected, they're appointed. They typically serve at the pleasure of the council and so on. But the things that I typically get asked is, does sunshine law apply? Yes. Does public records apply? Yes. Do ethics laws apply? Yes.
All right. Anybody else?
Do they, just one question, Mr. Mayor, do they have to, as we do up here, have the ethics training?
They do not have to have the 4-hour ethics training,
Right.
but it's highly recommended that they do.
Okay. So did
Rod
any
Olson.
of our members did assign, is that something that you would require, Mr. Mayor, from the,
I don't require it. I don't know whether we.
Yeah,
We
the
offer-
primary thing is that they understand sunshine law because that's where you can get, and public records. The ethics part is important too because they could be receiving gifts that need to be reported and know what gifts they can't take and sort of things like that, which is where the ethics part comes in. But primarily it's to keep them from violating the law because they don't get sunshine or public records and understand things about emails and texts and all that. That training they should all get, even though it's not required.
Rod Olson, 3156 Rolling Hills Lane. I serve as a volunteer with Howard Washington. You can't find a finer gentleman. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll close the public hearing. Look for motion to reappoint Member Washington to the Planning Commission for an additional 3-year, or it's really a 2-year term, right?
well, it's a 3-year term, but he,
Yes. Okay.
okay, so moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, 451 Commerce Park Transportation Impact Fee Agreement.
Good afternoon. At your September 7th, 2022 meeting, council approved a transportation impact fee credit agreement with the developer of this site, Arrow Rock. The plan was to make improvements to Marshall Lake Road. They were going to pay $616,000 and some change in transportation impact fees. At that time, we thought that the improvements would be about $475,000, but we wrote the agreement kind of loosely because we've learned our lessons before. You don't ever know what you're going to find when you start digging around. We did some coring and we knew there were some base issues, so standing here is really not that unexpected. But the terms of the agreement require us to put a 15% contingency on top of everything else. When we thought the costs were going to be $475,000, we just rolled everything up to the $616 and the contingency. So now what we found was something that I totally did not expect. There is a water line out there, and it was buried just barely below the surface. So I talked to Dio about it, and there, we could patch it and do, like a fix, but we decided just to do it the right way. We're going to bury the water line, and it's about $130,000 adder to the project. Now, it brings the project cost up still below the $616 in impact fees, but because of the condition in the agreement that says I have to have a 15% contingency. That is why I'm asking you for additional money. I do not expect to use that money. And Dio has graciously agreed to pull $130,000 out of his budget to fix the water line.
What a guy, what a
So it really doesn't affect the transportation impact fees, but because of the conditions in the agreement that was signed, I have to add money to this contract. So I'm asking you to approve the change to the budget, even though I don't expect to use that money.
Any questions for Pam? All
Well,
right.
I just want to say thank you because you're right. They were asking you to throw concrete over the.
Yeah, one of the
and-
suggestions, I mean, we were just brainstorming about what could be done, and somebody threw out, well, we could just cap it in concrete, but if there was
But
ever a
refitting
break or
it
anything out
and-
there,
and doing
they
it
would
the-
have a lot of problems trying to fix it.
No,
So
and refitting it and doing the right way is the right thing to do.
it benefits everyone out
Right.
there.
So thank you for realizing that you can fix it.
Deal.
All right, any other questions for Pam? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the 451 Commerce Park Transportation Impact Fee Agreement Amendment.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Radley Youth Sports Partner Program Agreement.
Good afternoon again. Radley Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here this afternoon to present the Apopka Little League Youth Sports Program Agreement. The Parks and Recreation Department utilizes a methodology to consider potential recreational programs and partnerships. Those are categorized in three different areas. Field rental agreements. These are agreements established by individual renters or groups looking for multiple fields, seasons of play, and days of times. Rental rates will apply for these agreements, and they'll be based on field availability and space. We also have partner programmers. These are agreements in which the city is interested in partnering with specific programmers or providers to provide group lessons or instruction. These agreements typically apply an 80-20 revenue split on program participants between the city and programmer. And then we have what we're discussing today, partner programs. These are agreements with athletic and sport organizations to organize and run affordable, low-entry barrier sport leagues in athletics and sports, which the city currently does not run with city staff. These agreements are most often with nonprofit organizations that are part of a larger national sanctioning body, i.e. Little League, and may have a mix of field rental rates or revenue splits. The Apopka Little League organization is a completely volunteer-led organization and has been a long-standing partner with the city of Apopka, dating back to their start of the league in 1965. Throughout this long history, the league has provided thousands of Apopka's youth with an opportunity to build character, learn teamwork, and sportsmanship through the game of baseball and softball. Apopka Little League offers both spring and fall seasons, with numbers continuing to grow over the past 3 years. In addition to their spring and fall leagues, Apopka Little League often volunteers to host postseason tournaments in the summertime at our Northwest Recreation Complex, which of course brings families from all over the Central Florida area and the state of Florida to our amazing park. The partnership with Apopka Little League provides a high-quality youth baseball and softball program for the community at a low cost and allows the Apopka Parks and Recreation Department to dedicate staff and resources to providing other programs for the youth, such as our soccer and flag football program. Staff support continuing this successful partnership through this proposed agreement, which is attached to the staff report. And President of the league, Gary Odom, apologizes for not being here, but he is actually a volunteer now as a crossing guard. So it's school's been let out.
I've actually seen him at
Yeah.
the school crossing.
And I don't believe any of the other board members made it today either. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
Kenny Smith. Yep. If you have any words you would like to say, or. But it's a great partnership, and we're excited. A new season's come fast and furious coming our way. So, any questions?
Any questions for Radley?
No. Every
None?
year that league just gets larger and larger, and it's a volunteer. And we really enjoy the opening days all the time. It seems like thousands come out, but I'm looking at the numbers and the participants. So I guess for each child that's playing, they must bring 10 family members with them. But it is a really fun day, and I'm looking forward to it this year when you do the opening for the Little League.
And you're going to have a surprise for Mr. Gary Odom that he will be
He
tickled
has been
for.
so dedicated to that. But thank you.
I got something for him. So.
And I just want to say that as a Apopka resident for so many years, I was in Little League myself a year or two ago, and it's cool to see a lot of my friends that I also met through Little League are now volunteer coaches as well. So it's cool to see with their kids and doing it. So it's a great program. I'm excited that we are continuing the partnership. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak?
Rod Olson, 3156 Rolling Hills Lane. I need to probably sit closer. At any rate, the only thing I want to point out, I think it's a wonderful program. There's no question about what the Little League brings, but the Little League is paying $8,000 a year. Central Florida Soccer Club is paying $51,000 a year. Both programs serve about 350 to 400 students. A vast majority are Apopka residents. We must look at doing something about these rates.
Anybody else? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve the Youth Sports Partner Program Agreement with the Apopka Little League.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Nesta, second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, investment portfolio composition. Lynch.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. On October 18th, the City Investment Advisor, Morgan Stanley, Mr. Glenn Scott, presented to you the proposed changes and revisions to the city's investment policy for review and consideration. On December 6th, the council approved Resolution 2023-40, amending the Ordinance 873, amending and restating that investment policy. Today, we would like to present to you Morgan Stanley, Mr. Glenn Scott, investment strategy based on the current holdings, our policy restrictions, and the long-term goals for consideration. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Blanche. Good to see you again, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. We'll go ahead and bring up this. Let's see how I control this. There we go. Yeah. So at the end of the year, here were the balances in the three major overnight accounts that the city has and the corresponding interest rates, which are really correlated to the federal funds rate. And if you all have been following, there's been a lot of news items about the policy changes that will go on or expected to go on this year as the Federal Reserve finishes its increasing of interest rates to fight inflation, and we start tacking over and looking at the economy slowing down a little bit, job markets getting a little softer, and the possibility that the Fed will reverse itself this year and start the path of cutting interest rates. And that was very timely for your all's deliberations about establishing this investment program that would look to create a more diversified portfolio, fully utilizing the tools that are available for you under Florida statutes. You implemented the new investment policy, and so now we're just taking a look at where we are with markets and coming up with some, I'd call it small steps, incremental steps of transitioning a portfolio to have a little bit more diversification in terms, particularly in terms of duration. In other words, how far out are you investing? And the reason why you'd want to do that is if interest rates are going to start going down, you want to have some protection to the income stream. Because this portfolio right now, while it's achieving a very good yield, it's doing a very good job of generating interest income for the city. So you're in a good spot. The issue is, you want to start pushing a little bit of money out and protect yourself against a decline in interest rates and try to preserve that revenue stream. So with that, we'll just tack over and take a look at some ideas. This is the, this first table is the, kind of the crux of what you implemented in the investment policy. On the left-hand column is the various types of securities that are authorized to you under Florida statutes and under now your investment policy that you've adopted. The minimum credit ratings and the maturity limits are specified along with the different allocations. And it's the allocations that we want to pay a little attention to. If you drop all your eyes down to the bottom of the page, you can see there's the demand deposit accounts and the various limitations there. We are in conformity to this policy right now. So if we do nothing, you're fine. And the two items there that are of particular interest are the very bottom two numbers on the lower right-hand corner, which is the total allocation you can have in bank deposits, which is 100%, and how much you can have in any one institution, 50% of the portfolio. Now, again, the good news with the way Florida is set up, it's a great statute, great program. It's called the Qualified Public Depository Program, which when public money is placed into a bank, the amounts above the FDIC limits of insurance are collateralized under a unique program just for public entities. The banks have to pledge high credit quality assets to protect those deposits. And that's just to protect the whole country. If there's some bank failures, we don't want that dominoing in and taking down local governments. It makes a lot of sense. And it's a very effective program. So everything's good. We're not compelled here to do anything immediately, but we do think your timing is good to start taking a look at pushing the portfolio out a little bit. So here's some ideas we have for you. And again, this is always a dynamic thing. So we're just saying, okay, in the end of the first quarter, so by the end of March, we'd want to do a little bit of a reallocation from the two bank accounts and the SBA. The SBA is it's a local government investment pool operated by the state. So it was created by special legislation. It's operated by the state government through contracted investment advisors. And it's a very large, it looks like a money market fund is effectively what it is, but it's organized at the state level. And then the two big bank accounts. So we're just taking an allocation from those bank accounts and spreading it across a little bit of the other securities that are available to you. The big one being an allocation to U.S. Treasury securities. So we would buy what's called a ladder. We just buy incremental chunks of time out onto the yield curve, because we want to do this very carefully and very slowly, because we're also paying attention to cash flow needs and other considerations. So that would be the proposal for the first quarter. What we do in the second quarter will be rejuggled. We'll complete this. We'll get to the end of March. We'll start looking at where we're at with what the Fed's talking about doing, where the cash flows of the city are looking like, and then we'll update those 2Q24 numbers before we do anything else in April, May, and June. All right, and then on the next slide, that's really it. Yeah, I'm sorry, I want to take your eyes down to the pie chart there. That's what the allocation would look like at the end of the first quarter. And again, 50% of the portfolio in qualified public bank deposits, which is still a big allocation to that classification. It's a little technical, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Commissioner Nesta?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate you putting this together, and thank you for acknowledging our timing. I do think it was really important that we take this into account for what the city's going through right now. We've got a lot of CapEx projects coming on the horizon too, so I'd like to figure out how we can pay for those without going too much into debt and things like that. So, and it keeps our residents' dollar in mind. So I'm really appreciative of that and of your time bringing this together. So walk me through the Q1. We're pulling funds from our two bank accounts, Seacoast and Synovus, to move into treasuries. That's basically
pretty much it.
Effectively what's happening.
Yep.
And what type of time horizons are you expecting to put those into?
We'll ladder out starting in about 6 months in the shorter term instruments. So away from the treasuries, some of the commercial paper, which are direct investments.
Get closer to the mic.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the shorter term investments, Commissioner, would be in the commercial paper allocation, but the longer term ones, the U.S. Treasuries, would start about 1 year and go out to about 3 years.
Okay. What type of returns do you expect for those?
Very, very difficult to say. It's moving around quite a bit.
I want you to lock it in today. Just lock it in today.
It's actually going to be lower. The markets are very efficient in looking forward in time and establishing prices that are rational, right? So overnight rates are higher than long-term rates. It's an inverted yield curve. And that is, the only reason why that exists is because everybody is betting, or the market's set up in anticipation that the Fed is going to start cutting interest rates, and pretty aggressively. So people jump ahead and bid down the yield by raising the price of the bond. The yield is inversely related. So the yields on bonds that you can invest in goes down because everybody's trying to get money out of cash now and lock in rates before the Fed starts cutting. So, so it will be a drop, and that's a little bit of a balancing act. So Commissioner, the analysis we do is we say, okay, if we just leave the money in the bank, and what's the expected schedule of cuts that the Fed would do? Because in the case of Synovus, they are actually paying you a rate that's established directly by a mathematical formula based on Fed funds. It's Fed funds minus 5 basis points. Great, that's a great deal. That's a very, very competitive offer they're giving you. So we can look at how many cuts are being anticipated by the markets, and then we say, okay, if we buy the Treasury today, what point in time in 2024, 2025 does the city get ahead of itself in terms of its total interest income over that period of time?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and what's the total amount that we'd be taking out of Seacoast versus Synovus? What's our total? Because we have 38 million in.
Probably just under 30 million from each. Just under 30 million from each.
From each.
Yeah.
So we had December 6th when we were finalizing this investment policy. We had a lot of misinformation going out, and a lot of our banking partners came and thought we were moving money that day to you guys, basically, which is not the case and is clearly inaccurate. It was just direct lies that were being fed around. So I'm happy to hear that that's not the case. So I guess, we want to still partner with our banks that are here, and they're giving us great rates too. So I want to make sure that we're being good partners in that. So how do we, I guess, balance out our partnership with them, making sure that that we're holding up our end of the deal? They gave us great rates. I want to continue to make great rates, but also, can you just time the market perfectly for me? And can you time the market perfectly for me that as those rates are going in, we can lock them in down the road? So I guess, how do we partner correctly with our banks that we have now? What would you suggest?
Well, I think you're doing a great job. You continually negotiate with the banks about here's the rates that we're seeing, and what will you offer us? And you've created to be honest with you, this is a very, very competitive rate that the banks are paying. We manage money for public entities all over the country, and if a bank that is offering collateralized deposits, because the cost of collateralizing those deposits is not zero. They have to take assets off the bank's balance sheet to pledge to the system, and that's cost probably 0.25%. 25 basis points is cost for that pledge of collateral. So if they're paying you Fed funds minus 5, and the cost of collateralization is 25 basis points, they're really paying you Fed funds plus 20. So that's a very, very good deal. So I in terms of picking up additional interest income, you're not going to pick up a lot by reallocating aggressively, and until we see some significant reductions in the Fed funds rate, you're not going to see a lot of gains in terms of
Otherwise.
Yeah.
So and I guess that's my point, is how I want to keep the money in our local banks that are making us good rates as long as possible until it doesn't make fiscal sense anymore to do that.
Right. That's I think this is a very slow reallocation. This is not an aggressive reallocation. And again, when we get to the second quarter, same thing. We'll just reevaluate. And just to be clear, and I appreciate, Commissioner, your comments about our motivations here. We're a fiduciary to you, which means we have sole loyalty. Our contract is a public record. We're paid on the total assets. That we don't get paid for selling you securities. We're paid a fixed fee in contract. So we have Morgan Stanley has no skin in the game here as to what we end up doing. Our job is to advise you as a neutral party in your best interest what you should be doing. So I have no outside motivations to do anything here.
Sure. All right. Well, I appreciate you clearing that up as well. I think, my biggest thing is just timing, obviously, and I want to make sure that our banking partners have some preference as well, because they have given us very attractive rates, as you said as well. And I want to make sure that we are partners with them and not just letting them out to the wind just because we find a slightly better deal or things like that. And right now, to your point, there's not much better out there. We got the best of the best. So I want to keep that as long as we possibly can. Thank you.
Well said.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes, my question is the percentage, the rate in which the banks pay on monies invested depending on the amount of money that's placed in that particular institution?
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner. To my understanding, there's no requirement from the bank to you to deposit a specific amount to achieve the rate they're offering. That is a rate independent of how much you place in the bank. So there's no penalty for changing the amount. At least that's my understanding.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So the
again?
question, Commissioner, was if we I think what the Commissioner was getting at is if we reduce down or change the amount we have with the bank, will that affect the rate that we're being paid? And the answer is, I believe it will not affect the rate you're being paid.
Blanche, you want to weigh in? Because I know there's some numbers that they wanted to be above, but I don't remember.
When we transferred the funds to Seacoast, I think they can possibly affect their rate if we take funds out of there. It could, because they wanted that commitment of those funds that were being transferred there to give us the rate that we have.
Well, and if I can follow up on that real quick then, because I spoke to Seacoast management as well to confirm that as well, and they echoed that same sentiment that, so I don't know what that threshold is, if it's 35 million, 30 million, 25 million, whatever that is. I want to make sure that we're not moving money tomorrow, which we're definitely not. No. And with our new process or our new policy that's in place, it would still have to come back in front of us. So although we may be saying, yes, this looks great, let's move forward, it would still have to come back to us for approvals.
That's why we're here today.
So this would be the approval?
Yes, we're here today to ask for that approval, and you have a phased-in approach. How you want to handle that as to what is planned for the first quarter, if you want to split that approach, slow it down, that's why we're here today. How do you want to handle it? This is what they're proposing to do over the next 2 quarters, but if it's something that you want to take the first quarter and break it in half or something like that and come back before we do anything for the second quarter, that's what we're here to talk about today.
Okay. I will.
And so according to this chart then, Seacoast is going to go from 38 million to 5 million.
Well, and after the first quarter, Seacoast we're planning to move out per this proposal, 28 million for the first quarter. That would take them down to 10 million.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the second quarter,
Yeah,
they go down to 5 million.
Yes, sir, to go another 5 down to 5 million.
And so then accordingly, then that will affect the interest rate if we go.
Potentially, that's the question we have to ask them, but that when the funds transferred from one Florida to Seacoast, they did stipulate that if you do this, and we'll give you this rate.
Right. Yeah. So, but if we approve this today and we don't know the answer to that question, okay. And then the other question was, I think Commissioner Nesta asked, how much were we moving? And the response was approximately 30 million. And when I look at Synovus, we're actually, by the end of the second quarter, would have moved 54 million.
He was saying for the two banks, 30 each.
I was speaking to the first quarter, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's about, for the first quarter, it's a total of 74.7 million from the QPDs into the allocation between, as listed on there.
And so we don't have the answer from Synovus as whether or not that's going to affect that either.
No. Okay. So again, this is just suggestion in order to reallocate, to bring about diversity in our portfolio to other financial instruments and investment instruments. Again, we can split the first quarter, phase it out however you're comfortable, follow up and get additional information, from Seacoast, whatever approach you want to take.
So if we split the first quarter, what would be the amount that we're talking about?
So half of 75, 35, 38 million? And just split everything in half. Like instead of taking 16 out of SBA, we'll take about 8.3. Instead of taking 28 million out of Synovus, we'll take 14. And about 4 Seacoast and 15 Synovus. So it'll just split it.
And you as the CFO, what do you feel comfortable with?
Me as the CFO, I think splitting it would be fine. We got to diversify at some point.
Right.
Okay, the impact may not be what you think it's going to be. It may not be higher because we do have good rates now with our local banks. They are standing up for us, no doubt. But if you want to diversify this portfolio and you want to take some risk and some long-term investment and looking for that long-term gain, not that short-term gain, this is the approach. I think we need to take, as you and I discussed, some baby steps towards that and monitor it very closely. But at some point, we're going to have to take a step.
Commissioner Smith,
Well, just to end my comments, then not knowing the answer to those two questions from those two institutions, then I would be asking that we cut that in half.
Cut it in half. Yeah, it's only the one institution, Seacoast. So Novus, their rate is fixed on Fed funds rate, mine is 0.5. Okay. But it's the Seacoast rate because of how the funds were transferred.
All right, then I would like for us to do half.
And Commissioner, I think you raised a really good point here, and perhaps we could even go a little further and make it more contingent, such that if we identify any rate change as a result of the withdrawals from Seacoast, that we taken that into account and adjust downward because of the negative impacts that would have on interest income.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's really well said.
Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Based off of our investment policy vote, I'll table my thoughts until after I hear from the chair and public comment.
Well, I sat with our CFO yesterday, and I truly appreciate how you break this down for me because unlike, I'm not as knowledgeable as our vice mayor, but I just wanted how you felt comfortable with this investment, and you did break it down to me, and we did talk about breaking it, not breaking it, well, doing half of what you're doing now, and then coming back and making a presentation. It is important for us as we're growing as a city, and we have very big projects coming up. We have the public safety building, and I feel like diversifying our finances would give us that much more so that we can spend without having to go into debt. So I'm actually for doing it in half. And we can take it from there. But I will make that decision after I hear, of course, our vice mayor and the chair.
Okay, I guess one kind of overriding question is, should we punish Morgan Stanley if rates go down?
Well, okay, firstly, we're not investing with Morgan Stanley. I just want to make that absolutely clear. Yeah. So when you say punish, what we will do is when we finish the investments and the movements, we will do what we were talking about a moment ago, which is a break-even analysis, which will be the date and time given a schedule of likely Fed cuts, and we can do Bloomberg market consensus, whatever, a third-party well-regarded national prediction of how many cuts the Fed's going to do, whether it's 4 or 6, wherever it's going to be this year, and then a date at which there will be a break even. And once the securities are bought, that's a mathematical calculation. It's a matter of fact. So
And that may be that's not where I was heading.
oh, I'm sorry.
And my fault for not kind of clarifying the question. The question, I guess, is if the Fed fund rates go down,
Yes.
is that your fault, or is that our finance director's fault? Is that the bank's fault?
No, and a central tenet in the best practice of investing public funds is we do not invest public funds for purposes of speculation. You know, we're not taking we don't take public portfolios for any city and invest them speculatively. We invest against known cash flow schedules, we invest against state statutes, and we seek to earn a market rate of return with minimal risks. That's kind of public investing 101.
And if rates go up, federal fund rates go up, and we make more money, do I give you all the credit?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not here to predict and speculate against movements of interest rates. What we do is we say, here's what the markets anticipate interest rates moving. Here's the value at different points in time that the markets are offering. Here's the cash flow needs that you have as a city, considerations of long-term debt financing and these kind of things, whether you're going to cash finance or debt finance. And we kind of throw that all into the pot, and then we just say, here's the rational decision. But we're not here to speculate with public money.
Thank you. All right. Anybody from the public wish to
Well,
speak? on this?
we didn't hear from Vice
Well,
Mayor.
yeah,
You wanna-
So how you open your comments, the beauty of the investment policy that we passed 3-2 is that we are in conformance still, right?
Yes.
We have 100% of our liquid cash in QPD institutions. So at this stage, it then becomes, what are we voting on today and why are we voting on it? I mean, this table lays out very good about the diversity of our funds. And this screams on the page, diversity of funds to make sure that our funds are secure, well diverse, what have you. In terms of what I would imagine everybody's investment priority is, it's return on our money, first and foremost. And so from your opinion, and again, I realize this forward-looking statements and you can't make promises, I get that.
Sound like my lawyer.
The schedule that you have in front of us, regardless of whether or not we have things or quarter things or whatever, if we went this route, is it your stance that it's going to lend the priority of maximizing our return, or is it equal parts maximizing return, equal parts diversifying our portfolio? Kind of give me some insight there.
It's a balanced consideration of both.
Okay. Yes. So, and then I had a clarifying question. When you talk about the quarterly schedule there, you're talking calendar quarters, correct? Because we're on a different fiscal cycle.
Yes, we're
So
talking
I wanna
calendar
make sure
quarters.
that we're talking the same quarters.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, on the first slide you have there, we've got, between 5.35 and 5.65% return on our money currently. If we were to go on this schedule, do you think it's going to be more favorable to our position of our current rate that we're receiving in those institutions?
No. Initially, the yield on the overall portfolio would go down.
And by how many basis points do you anticipate?
Well, if we do what I think was proposed by Blanche a moment ago, which was half of what was stated here, and I thought I saw nodding heads, maybe there's consensus for that. But let's say something like that, it would be maybe a reduction of about 10 basis points.
Okay. If we went the halved route.
Yeah.
Okay. But if not, 20.
Right, and then the flip side, the other side of that coin is, if the Fed makes its first rate cut in, let's say, June, then that's the clock that starts moving you ahead. If the Fed delays the first cut until August or September, probably September, then it's going to take longer for you to catch up.
All right. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this one? All right. Blanche, you ready to, anything last?
So at this time, based on what I've heard today, the consensus is to take that first quarter and split it in half. And of course, we'll see how that comes out. We'll come back to you before we do any other moves and see how everything balances out. I'll follow up with Seacoast in regards to their rate as well.
And then just, sorry, and if we do nothing today? What's the advice if we do nothing today?
If you do nothing today, well, we would come back at some future point that you would instruct us to do so and do another updated analysis. We would add the additional information that Commissioner Smith brought forward, the answer to that question, which is what would be the change in the offer from, that was Seacoast? Yeah, that was Seacoast. Would Seacoast change the depository rate that's being offered now? But we're going to do that regardless. We do that in either scenario. But
Because where I struggle, right, is if we're saying we commit to this today, we're actually going to be punitive to us in terms of return on that investment.
Yes.
We're well within the parameters of our investment policy, to your point. And so why would we not just let it ride and let kind of float with the Fed funds outlook to?
The duration of your portfolio is 1 day. So the return of your investment portfolio is a known number for 1 day. If the Fed cuts rates tomorrow, 25 basis points, your portfolio will drop 25 basis points almost instantaneously. What you're giving up is some current income today for longer term protection. And if you look at if you take your mind out across the calendar, there is a point in time at which you then go ahead because you have an established a longer term known rate of return on your portfolio against a market that's got declining interest rates.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, if Fed funds stays true to comments that they've made, if they're getting into that rate strategy and executing on it in June versus anything sooner, then indulge me, right? But June being the end of Q2, beginning of Q3, that time frame, why would we not shift this forward in the calendar year to, I mean, you're doing a little bit of hedging, for sure.
So the markets instantaneously reprice every security that's available to you when any new knowledge is gained. So as soon as the Fed makes some announcement or some indication that here's the pace or the schedule we're going to do, every long-term security adjusts in its available yield. So if you wait longer, more likely than not, the yields on those longer-term securities will be lower in the future because the markets will have adjusted to the fact that the Fed is about to cut rates. So it's a time value thing. It's, every day you give up is a day you got to get paid off on the other side. And the markets are very, very efficient. It's a very rational, very, very rational market.
Well, thank you. I just want to be fully transparent so that
it's
here's
good.
Here's the logic in the
it's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, so with that, I mean, in mind, basically what we're doing is we're realizing we're not realizing anything yet, but we're not experiencing the income or the interest anymore if we do lock in a lower rate right now through treasuries or commercial paper. So
maybe in reverse, if you think about it like something that people are more experienced with, like on a mortgage. And if we think about buying a fixed mortgage versus an adjustable rate mortgage, now in this case, we're thinking about the opposite situation where interest rates would rise. And you as a homeowner have to make a decision when you do a mortgage. Do you want to have a variable rate mortgage and get a lower upfront payment? But you run the risk if interest rates rise, then you are underwater on your mortgage. You can't afford it.
Sure.
So it's the same analysis in reverse.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess just after all this dialogue, it's...
Again, I'm not trying to sell you anything.
No, I know. So I'm just speaking out loud just for the rest of my commissioners up here and the mayor to kind of understand where my head's at is that we have great rates with local banks right now. We're not going to get better anywhere else right now without getting and I would like to see what that minimum minimum deposit amount would be at Seacoast to keep this consistent rate as well before we make any, because we're saying half, but what if they need 30 million, which I know we'll adjust, and that was the agreement, but I'd still like to see if Synovus would, I just would like to hear from them more specifically, especially with the accurate information that we're getting now, just to see what their feedback is. Seacoast, sorry, not Synovus, but Seacoast, yes, correct, sorry. Thank you. So it may make sense to table this for either next meeting or even next month, just to kind of get a better understanding from our banking partners. And again, we're making great interest, so I don't hate it, but I know you're gambling a little bit without locking in the future. So we're making great income now, but we're not locking in that better preferred rate in the future. So I understand that trade-off right now, but I'd really like to hear from our banking partners as well, more specifically of what where their heads are at as well, and how we can again partner even more so together in the future.
And Ms. Sherman, let me ask one other question. Payroll, which account does payroll come out of?
Payroll comes out of the Synovus account.
So we have a minimum we have to keep with them just for the.
Yeah, and we're good. Our average has been around 80-some million, let's say, for this year.
No, but I mean, but what do we need just for?
Oh, and Synovus, the operating account is about $5 million.
$5 million?
Yes, sir.
So,
but this is the investment account.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
To Commissioner Nesta's point, I'd be happy to table. I don't care, pick it 2 weeks or the following month. But two things. One is we need to check with our banks to see where we are there. But also, I think we need Morgan Stanley. You don't have to come back. We appreciate you coming twice, in the last 6 months. The other thing we'd like to know is when we get ready, like the day of or the day before the meeting that we're going to bring up the investment discussion, if you could give us those rates for, is it CDs or whatever, the treasuries or whatever, so that we can look at it, analyze, okay, here, if we put $5 million in a 3-month treasury, that will cost us X, or it will make us X. Just so we have it all, and we have to almost be real time so we can make a decision based on, is that? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, it's very doable.
Oh.
And if you don't mind, I might not fly out for that, but.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, we appreciate you coming. But
we'll give it the Blanche, we'll prep it.
Sure.
We'll throw in a caveat that this was, the mark on the securities 48 hours ago or whatever it would be. And it will give you guys real time. And I hear what you're all are saying in different ways is you want really drilled down, like increment by increment, like here's where we're at with the treasuries, here's where we're at with the bank, and then you can say, okay, where's the break even? Yeah, I will say just one thing that has happened is interest rates have gone up on the longer term securities recently. So maybe if we do this sooner than later, I would think would be probably a pretty good idea.
Okay. All right. Super.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate that. All right. So we can confer a motion there, Commissioner Nesta.
Move to table this to the February 21st meeting.
Okay. I got a motion by Commissioner Nesta, second by Commissioner Smith to table for 2 weeks. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for the deliberation, and thank you for the clarity that you all put forward. That was really helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right.
Okay. Ordinance number 3045. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from T transitional to IL light industrial for certain real property generally located at 135 Hermit Smith Road, owned by Marilyn S. Brohan Trust, comprising 7.23 acres more or less, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Good afternoon, this is Junsun Planner 2. The item has been requested for continuance as it was re-advertised, ordinance number 3045. on January 26, 2024. So the first reading on ordinance number 3045 will take place on March 6, 2024.
Okay, any questions for June? Anybody from public wish to speak on this motion? All right, so looking for a motion to move it to what?
March 6th.
March 6th?
Yes.
First reading?
Yes.
Oh, you're moving this to March 1st
Right.
for first reading? And I'm sorry.
For the first meeting, yes.
Yeah.
So
Why
was-
are we moving it?
So originally it was advertised in wrong property. I mean, posted on wrong property. So it was the applicant requested continuance for the planning commission meeting. However, we found out the ordinance number was also
Okay.
wrongly given. So we re-advertised it, and then we had to.
I did question that yesterday. I'm sorry. Completely. I actually have both of them.
Okay.
Okay, that's the only reason, was because it had the wrong
Yes.
ordinance number, so you used to have to put it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, look for a motion to continue to the March 6th date, ordinance number 3041.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Nesta. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and that was from.
All right, city council reports. Commissioner Nesta, you want to start us out?
Sure. Start off with, we're honoring and celebrating Black History Month, so I'm very excited about that. I was just going to see, what is the Apopka Youth Council adding to the book that they did last year? Is that continuing?
Yes.
Okay.
29 new members.
And when can we expect to be able to purchase that? And
We just got, we had one name that was either middle name was middle or middle name was first name, and so we finally figured that out 8 o'clock this morning. So it's gone to the printer and probably end of the week, maybe Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then are we doing a city-hosted event?
Yes, you should have gotten an email. It's going to be, it's under the mayor's report, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. It's the Legends of Apopka. It'll be Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Apopka Community Center. We're going to have the Wekiva High School Choir. Mark Wright's going to sing some gospel tunes for us. And we invite all the families. We're going to roll out each of we're going to roll out the names of all the 29 people that will be in the book here over the next little while. So books will be on sale for sure by Monday for $10 here at City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then in reference to diversity, equity, and inclusion, are there any new program? I just haven't seen that.
Well,
committee.
they're in charge. They're the ones running this program. So
Who? The DEI group?
yes, yeah. We had one meeting last night, but we didn't have. It was just try to get this ready to go. It was
So who actually did the book, though? The DEI book?
Francina Boykin and the Apopka Youth Council.
So where does the DEI group come in?
They're going to help us with the program on the 27th.
And you had a meeting with them? I saw I saw the person that I appointed. She never even mentioned it, and I saw her
Yeah.
last night.
Yeah, well, she got an email from Stephen.
I mean, I literally
Yeah.
saw her
Yeah.
last night at 7 o'clock in the evening, and she made no mention of it.
Okay.
And I did ask her for,
Yeah.
if anything has the DEI group even had any meetings or anything like that? Okay.
Is that their most recent meeting? What was the most recent meeting before that one?
I don't have Stephen here. I can't tell you. It's been probably October, maybe.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I'd like to see that committee and group get a little more active, and I guess that probably comes from us as well, just creating opportunities for them as well. I could be incorrect, so I'm switching topics here. Is there, I guess the J. Engel Group finalized some type of report or something? Is there a way we can get a copy of that?
Commissioner, as you remember, the federal report won't be out till
Push it, just push.
Till in March or April. So the J-Angle group is actually going over the policies and procedures at the fire department. They have a working group that involves some of the employees over there, and that is continuing forward. I actually had a meeting with them last Friday, and they were very, J-Angle group was very positive of the feedback that they're getting. So as far as that goes, we're working on policies and procedures until that federal report comes out.
And we can expect that end of March?
They're saying March or April.
Okay.
And then J-Angle will review that report and then come back from there.
And are they issuing like an opinion or what can we expect? What's the product we can expect from them after they've reviewed that report?
Well, they'll review the report and then give any kind of recommendation from there.
Of how to either fix or change if there is any? And,
correct.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you.
And I believe, I don't know if you personally met with them, but they did come down and
Yes.
met about 2 months ago with everybody.
Yeah, we spent an hour or two together.
Are they finished with all their interviews with the city staff or the fire department and whoever they had to?
Well, they continue to interact with the fire department and go through that list of things that were in the Gannon report.
Right.
And then, like I said, they are working on policies and procedures and updating those. And there is a working group within the fire department that involves from staff all the way through to have their input.
Okay.
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 Thank you. Last one for me. I know we have a workshop next Tuesday. I'm just a little confused about, I guess, I don't understand the purpose of the meeting overall, and I couldn't really get some answers on that. And also why it's with the Planning Commission. I've never seen us have a joint workshop with them before.
One of the developers, again, Jim Hick, Community Development Director, one of the developers for the Wild Oaks development up in the Kelly Park interchange, we have not seen a formal plan for any of that development, other than a real quick one on one of the Zoom calls. But they have reviewed that portion, the Appendix A of the Land Development Code, which is the form-based code for the Kelly Park interchange. And they believe that they have some changes that they would like to make their product work better. Staff has reviewed probably about a third of the changes. There are some minor changes that we could see working, but there's also quite a few other changes that we aren't necessarily in agreement. But we had a meeting with them, and one of the things that they mentioned was meeting individually with the Planning Commission and City Council. And instead of having to go through a formal, trying to find even time for all of you to meet and all of the Planning Commission, so that's 12 members total, where not all the questions are going to be the same, not all answers are going to be the same based on the questions themselves. Staff felt that it was more appropriate to do a workshop where they could present all at the same time to all of you in this forum, where you can ask questions, they can present the issues that they have. If there's anything specific that comes out that staff is not necessarily in agreement, this is not going to be a meeting where we're all in agreement and then we bring it to City Council and Planning Commission at the next meetings. This is going to probably take a couple months to be able to go through all the changes, because basically it's 115 pages of the code itself, and then they've made changes on practically every single page. And one of the things that staff is not necessarily in agreement is that they're making these changes for their development. However, this form-based code affects all of the Kelly Park interchange, not just their development. So they're going to probably have to buckle on some of the things that they really want as a wish list, based on that it's not supposed to be a Euclidean type or a normal code. This is supposed to be for the whole Kelly Park interchange. And it is a different location, and it's a form-based code for the whole development, not just their development.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. Yeah,
Before you get off that topic, can I just weigh in on that one? Because, I mean, last time there was a joint planning session like that, it was when we reviewed the land development code to begin
Yes.
with. I don't think we ever had one for the Kelly Park piece of the form-based code, but I think council just addressed that one individually. But, and this was the spirit of my conversation when we got that, because it's 100 and some odd pages, right? And
Yes.
there's literally red lines on every single one of the pages. Some of them are less material than others, but at the end of the day, who's going to facilitate the conversation? Because again, if it's one applicant for one project, I would think it would go through go through staff, go through DRC, go through planning, whatever the process is. Versus here, it's going to be one developer talking to both bodies collectively. What role is staff playing in that conversation? Because to me, it should be staff has these reservations or concerns based off what the applicant is asking. I'll just use one example. The amount of stories for a building. They want to maximize it to 10 stories. I'm sure that's going to cause like shock among residents, among planning, among council, whomever. So will staff have a point of view on most of the items that are being requested of the bodies, and how is that flow going to work? Because else it's going to be wild, wild west, and it's not going to be productive.
At this stage, what we're looking at doing is having them do a presentation. One of the things that staff is looking at doing is hiring a private company to actually go through this form-based code. Form-based codes are a little bit more detailed than just a normal code in regards to how it's going to affect the overall area. But we are looking at potentially hiring a private company to go through that has experience with form-based codes and the results of each little individual change that they're looking at doing. That'll probably be about a 3, maybe 4 week process in itself. We are making comments right now. We've got, like I mentioned, we've got about a third of it through, and there's quite a few things that we are not in favor of the changes. And that'll be presented. We probably won't be able to present it at this meeting because it's going to probably take a couple hours just to go through what they're presenting. And we only have 2 hours. We're not going to keep going after this. But my guess is that at this stage, we'll probably have at least 1, maybe 2 more joint workshops to be able to present these changes, because some are pretty drastic, like you mentioned. 10 stories. I'm not in favor of that. The most we have in the downtown is like 75 feet, and that area I believe it's not that much. I mean, there's a few changes that I can see making. I can go over a couple of those, but we'll be monitoring, and then we'll probably pitch in our 2 cents on a couple of those changes there.
Because a lot of it has to be prioritized. Because again, when we had the joint sessions with Land Development Code, there wasn't a lot of commentary because it's a 900 and some odd page document. Not everybody read every single word of every single sentence. But on this one, I mean, they're not equal in the changes. I mean, I would classify anything that's related to wide deviations in terms of floor area ratio or density or housing products in certain of the transition versus neighborhood zones.
Right.
Building height, that sort of stuff is going to be of utmost importance. And then all the other things like, definitions or what they call certain things. I mean, that's just.
Yep. Yeah, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of little things that we aren't necessarily in agreement, like townhomes in the single family section of the neighborhoods.
I didn't want to bring
no,
that
I don't want
subject,
that.
but yeah, that was one of my observations too. Is we have clearly defined. We have transitional areas. We have the neighborhood zones, and you have certain products for those things, and that was the whole spirit behind that code. If we start changing that stuff, then what's the point of having that code?
Correct.
I mean, you just apply the rest of our land development code to that area, and that's not what the spirit of it was.
Correct.
So,
And I agree, it will be a laborious, set of meetings. I mean, would you like our staff to kind of try to knock out half of them before we get there? Or I was going to leave it completely transparent as what they want, but staff could sit down and say, look, we're going to knock out half of them so that we don't have near the red lines. I'm happy either way.
We're going to have staff. We're meeting again this Friday. Staff, they're going through this pretty diligently, and right now, what our plan is to see if we can get something out to all of you either Friday or Monday. The problem is that, like you mentioned, almost every single page has something on it. So we're we'll have those comments, and it'll be, when you pull it up on the laptop or a computer, it's easier to see, but when you print it out, it's going to be smaller because we've got this column of comments. So that might come in handy when we get to the workshop itself, because you'll have a lot of comments that staff has already made. With any new document, obviously we've been working this out, and we've actually got quite a few different developments that are going through in the KPI, and they've been pretty successful. This is just it's another monster development.
And then I guess, and then any optionality, whereas, Kelly Park to the side, land development code, the rest of the city, we have the plan development zoning classifications where you can kind of create your own code within the confines of a plan development. I don't know if there's options, what those options look like for this particular development for Wild Oaks, to your point, because if we acquiesce on any of their points where they're trying to do different things for their specific development, it's not, generally adopted for the remainder of the form-based code.
Well, and that was going to kind of be my question too, is we have 3 or 4 major developers up there and major development. So I hate to add complexity to this, but I would like to hear their if we're going to do this, I want to hear their feedback too. Does this negatively impact their projects? Does it positively? Are they pro? Are they against it? Because it changes a lot. So I'm all about Wild Oaks, and hopefully what they're doing is beneficial to the community is obviously the goal here. So I just want to make sure it's a productive meeting for all of us.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't want it to become a free-for-all where any developer can come in and go, well, this isn't working for me. I want to change this section of the code. And basically, at this stage, that's what they've done. And it's not supposed to be a PD. This is supposed to be a form-based code. And they're turning it into more of a PD at this stage, so.
But I know that the other 2 major developers are going to be here.
Yes.
I mean, they'll be engaged. So I don't know if they're on board with all of it. We don't know.
We don't know, but and again, with the workshop, it's supposed to be between yourselves, planning commission, the developer who's doing this recommendations, and staff. So we aren't supposed to be getting a bunch of different comments in. They get what I would recommend is if they have general comments or specific comments on different portions that are being proposed for amendments, that they send those to staff and that we can relay those to you.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Sure. Mr. Smith?
And I would prefer having that on Friday as opposed to Monday.
We'll work towards that. Our meeting is in the morning, so if we can churn out what we can, if it's at least half to 2/3, we'll get those to you.
All right. We greatly appreciate it.
I understand.
On yesterday, I did have an opportunity to sit in on a transportation webinar, and Dr. Jackson was also a part of that webinar. There's some grant funds that are out there that we may possibly be able to get to help with transportation, and so I was glad to see her as a part of that. I sent that to our city administrator, and he shared it and invited them to attend, and she did, so I appreciate that. I did go to Tallahassee last week with the Florida League of Cities, and I had an opportunity to meet with several of our lawmakers to talk about the possibility of removing the business tax receipts from municipalities, and to talk about affordable housing and infrastructure and septic to sewer. Had a great conversation with all the lawmakers that I did speak with, and so we're hoping that they would do the right thing when it comes time to vote. There will also be a Black History program that the South Apopka Black History Committee has put together that would take place this coming Saturday from 11 to 2 at 927 South Central Avenue at the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, and you are invited. That's this coming Saturday from 11 to 2.
And what is that?
It's a Black History program that's been put together by the South Apopka Black History Committee. It's going to have some bounce houses for kids, some kids' activities. It's going to have Francina Borkin is bringing a display of Black history to put there. There'll be some vendors there, food and fun, just a community event, inviting the entire community to come out. That's all I have.
Mr. Becker?
Yeah, and I didn't want to address it during public comment because I didn't think it was appropriate, but I don't want to not address it. There was comments made about candidate eligibility for the upcoming election. I've received multiple emails voicing concern. I kind of lobbed those concerns over to our attorney as well. And then my understanding of the facts, and I won't bother naming names, but on one of the candidates, there was a question about form not being completed or signed or notarized properly at the time of qualifying. It's my understanding that the clerk reached out to the supervisor of elections office, signed an affidavit swearing to the fact that she was present during the signing of that, and it was within the qualifying period. The other candidate, there's documentation about address validation out in the public realm, but just because it's in the public realm doesn't mean it's a public document. It's a non-public case filing, so there's no way on earth I would touch that. I will leave that to other parties because I don't think that's legally my job to do. So my response there is, I definitely certainly respect the integrity of any election, but at the same time, I would not personally pursue anything as it relates to some of the accusations that are made. I'll leave it to other people to do that. The second thing, and we've had some email back and forth with our city administrator, Mr. Vavrick, and our council related to a video that's going around on social media right now around these First Amendment audits through different public organizations. And, obviously there's been even question about whether or not people are generally have to say their name and address for the record in order to publicly speak or sign in or show identification at the front receptionist desk. So I'm not a lawyer, don't pretend to be. So I will leave it to the people, the legal minds to work this out. But at minimum, there should be a standard approach to how we deal with people that come and do audits within our public facilities, because it's never going to end. As long as social media and these influencers are out there, we're going to get these folks, and I won't disparage them because, hey, it's in their full right to do these things. I just think that we should have a very standard way to approach it, because the video just screamed that we just didn't have comfort
Policy.
that we could address this person in a manner that was consistent. It should be hung right there in City Hall. That way it's just a kind of a, hey, point your finger to this. Hey, we do have this sign-in policy or ID validation policy because we feel like we've put the security policy in place. It meets constitutional challenges, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to make sure that we don't have a video like that where it just shows some discombobulation, if you will.
I was asked to speak on this matter. Monday, we met with the police legal advisor, with Cliff Shepard, myself and the city administrator to discuss this matter. Case law is pretty clear. We can secure the facility for the safety of our employees. The signage probably wasn't as clear as it needed to be. If you noticed, there's new signage around the entire building, as well as new signage on every city building as to what are restricted areas, what are not restricted areas. I am working on finalizing a city policy that will guide our personnel on how to deal with certain situations, not just First Amendment auditors, but anybody that wants to come into a city facility. We will have security protocols in place, and those security protocols have to be followed, or you don't have access to a city building. Just because it's a city building does not mean you have a right to walk wherever you want. Case law is clear on that. And Mr. Shepard can correct me anytime I misspeak, but we've done a lot of research since this incident occurred, and we are taking the steps to make sure our employees are protected. There's an ordinance out of the city of Punta Gorda where they've passed that you can't film employees because of distraction at their workplace. We're looking at that. It's withstood court muster, and we're looking at that also. I'm not as concerned about the videos of our employees as I am the videos of our buildings, because that does create a potential security risk to our facility, because now you have an inside video of the layout of the building, where our cameras are, where specific security features for the building are located out there in a public forum. That is a little bit of a concern from a police perspective. So I think steps are being taken. We are looking at piggyback contracts for security to not only have somebody check in and be searched before they come into, or be screened before they come into the building. If they don't want to do that, that's fine. We will still provide a city service to them. Somebody from the department will come down and assist them to provide whatever city services they want if an employee is available. If an employee is not available, it looks like, they can either come back at a later time, make an appointment to get those needs done, or they can leave it with the receptionist. She'll pass it on and get it handled and contact them. So we are in the process of making sure that it's very well spelled out in a city policy. I'm working on at least getting some guidelines to the employees and to the police department so that our personnel know that if somebody does breach the security protocol, what legally we can do, and our legal rights are to ask them to leave. If they refuse to leave, they are subject to being arrested. So we are taking care of it. Okay.
And then the last bit there, last meeting or a couple meetings ago, talking about the fire union negotiations, I think there was feedback that the new actuarial study was going to be between 3 or 4 weeks. That would put us in kind of the mid-February timeline. What I don't want to do is have this continue to fester. I mean, at what stage do we say bring it back to council and let us just make the decision versus having months and months of this continue down the path? I know that we all received, I'll speak for myself, we received an email from a former member asking for us to motion to bring it back to the council. I'm not ready to make a formal motion on that topic, but the longer this kind of keeps on going, I mean, what is that saying for us and for the people that work in that department?
Commissioner, we did speak with Mr. Mandel today. With this, his concerns were, and that is the council's option, his concerns were that the fire department actually made the request to go to mediation. That was initiated by them. His concerns are—
Fire union, not the fire department.
Correct, the fire union. I'll correct myself, fire union. They're the request for it to go to the mediator. And the mediator has made several dates, and the fire union's representation has canceled those dates and keeps pushing it out. So his concern were, you all do have that option to bring it back if you all want to put it here, but he would say, and his recommendation was that it should go through the mediator. That's a third party that addresses both the city's concerns and the union's concerns and try to come to a middle ground, and that the mediator is a professional person that does this on a day-to-day basis and handles those type of situations, and that's where he was at. So
when is the actuarial study supposed to be completed?
Actuarial study, that went back and forth, and I think we're still, did they get all the information from Empower now?
We haven't got it yet, but I'm hoping to get it this week so I can pass it on to the actuary. Joe, can you send the council in a kind of a status maybe tomorrow? Yes, I can. Okay, thank you.
Empower is who holds the funds. It used to be Prudential, but Empower now is the company took over, and they hold all the data that the actuarial company actually needs.
Can I ask 2 quick questions? I don't follow up since we're discussing this now. What was the total cost of that actuarial that we ordered?
30? When it 30? It was 15. Oh, that's, yeah, okay.
15,000.
And then
We had a quote of 15 on one and 40 some on another.
Wow. What's the cost to us, the city, taxpayers, to go to a special magistrate?
I don't have that figure, Commissioner. I can get that for you.
Because, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, if we go to special magistrate, their decision is non-binding. It still has to come back to us, correct?
On anything that does not come to a resolve, correct. There were, I want to say 16 articles on our side that we felt were out of line, and they're saying they have 29.
Okay.
So
it's got to, no matter what it's going to come, it has to come back to us.
At some point, you will have to, if there's, normally what the mediator will do will get it down to a couple that are out of agreement, but right now, you've got a huge disparity between the two.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And in many of those, we have given more than what they had asked for, and we put that on the table. So I think in many of those, we've gone above and beyond. It's just coming to the middle ground.
Anything else, Mr. Becker?
No.
Mr. Velazquez?
Well, I missed a lot because I went on vacation, but I do want to say before I left, we did go to the Wekiva Culinary School for their ribbon cutting, and that was a very festive and it was all the sponsors and everyone that had co-partnered with, you know, the Wekiva Culinary School, their department and that, and so that was a very good day. We did the Alonzo Williams Park. We planted a tree there. And what else did I have here? I did get something in the mail regarding the Apopka Boy Scout Golden Eagle Dinner for March 12th. And I was just questioning what this is the city planning to participate in this. And because the honoree is going to be our vice mayor, Commissioner Kyle Becker. So I'm going to put it out there.
When did you get that?
I got it in the mail.
I mean, at your house or here?
Yeah, no, I got it at home.
Okay.
I think it was home that I got it.
Okay.
Because when we came back from vacation, it was with all my mail that had been collected by my neighbor.
I had to pay them a lot of good money for them to honor me too.
Well, everyone touched base on some of the questions some of the issues that we had. Of course, you know, the social media video that's going around, the fire department. So I don't want to kind of touch on that again. But this is Black History Month, and we did read a proclamation for the Honorable and, you know, the late Mr. Alonzo Williams. But are we going to read a proclamation in general for Black History Month? And it will be presented here, right? And not at Hurricane Wings or anything like that.
I think it'll be at the 27th event.
Oh, where at?
At the community center. That's where we're doing our book. We're going to roll out the book.
We can probably do it both then, right? At the next meeting and then,
exactly.
and then there as well.
Yeah. Okay. And again, that book was done by our youth council, right?
They had a big part of it, and along with a lot of help from Francina Boykin, yes, and Stephen Cribb are on our staff as well. So, yep.
All right. So it'd be nice if we can recognize also for Black History Month some of our small businesses and entrepreneurs that have really made big investments in our community. Not, you know, it's nice to recognize the legends that have had a foundation in the city of Apopka. But as we move forward and we kind of celebrate these months where whether it's Black history, the Hispanic, the women's, it'd be nice if we can kind of recognize some of what the businesses and the community leaders that are currently helping to grow our city of Apopka. That would be a suggestion as we move forward.
And just you know, for all transparency here, I suggest we not do that. And that's
okay.
the last year and this year both have been people that are deceased only because they'll be there. I mean, you know, we've got 28 last year and 29 this year. It won't take long. You know, matter of fact, we got Alonzo Williams. He passed away as we were actually developing the book, so we got him in for this year. But you know, what we're trying to do is it's not only about Black leaders in Apopka, but it's also about the history of Apopka. So we're trying to blend the both. So I've kind of challenged Francina that, hey, give me some more people from the 1800s, early 1900s to add to the book, because if we don't do it now, while we've got, you know, their kids or grandkids that remember them, we'll lose them forever.
Okay.
The people that are here today, 50 years from now, 20 years from now, they'll still be, their memories will still be here with us. So that was my idea, because we the other thing that we did is it's not about national figures, which everybody's got, you know, all the national leaders that over the years, but I wanted to make it all about Apopka, you know, area leaders who have passed. So
Okay. Oh, because, you know, like Hope Community is celebrated 50 years
Sure.
here in the city of Apopka.
Sure.
It'd be nice if we can have some history of Hope Community and the farm workers that have
Sure.
been the hands of our nurseries and farms. It'd be nice if we can include them.
and Mayor touched on the point there a second ago, and I always forget to mention this, but yeah, even the fact of the day, we should weave in more Apopka-centric facts of the day. We keep on doing these
Okay.
national level facts of the day. We should weave in, we've got a historical society that's pretty active. I would recommend that we do more Apopka-based facts of the day as well.
All right, cool. Okay. Good. All right. Chuck, anything else? Good. Cliff?
Yes, Mayor, briefly, I have learned recently about something that I had gotten through 40 years of a career and not known much about, and that is called a cybersecurity event. And you don't want it. So the reason I'm bringing it up is not to shed any light on the party that's involved, but to tell you that I know that before we all can blink, it will be budget season again, which you all love. And I've spoken to Mr. Hippler about it, and Mr. Vavrick about it, and Mr. McKinley about it. And I do not know what other steps can be taken to protect you. But if there are steps that can be taken that are not currently be taken, you definitely want to take them. It is a huge nightmare to deal with. And you have limited coverage available to you because the insurance companies just don't offer a lot. In a city of this size, it would be a major pain in the neck. And so whatever you can do to protect yourselves, I would urge you to consider doing that. I'm not smart enough to tell you what those steps are, but I know that Mr. Hippler is. And if there's anything else that needs to be done, you should look at doing it. Secondarily, I plan to get to you for our next charter review, which is Thursday, by Monday and perhaps earlier, both the memorandum of the new articles, which I guess are 3 and 4, plus the amendments that were requested as draft that will cover 1 and 2, and potentially also, well, I won't know what you want on 3 and 4, but I will start incorporating amendments because some of the amendments, like for example, the change that will go all the way through the charter if it were to be passed for council manager form of government versus strong mayor form of government, I'll cover those changes as they apply to Article 2, which will be minimal. And as we go to 3 and 4, I will add those to the changes that will be made as you tell me what you want to see in 3 and 4. So my goal is to get all that stuff to you no later than Monday, earlier if possible. If you like reading emails on the weekend, pay attention because you probably will get them.
Can we make sure that's posted online too? That's not
Which part?
The forms that you'll be providing to us.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what happens after I
Yeah, it's
send
not,
them out.
yeah, more so for staff, because I know a lot of residents were asking about that to be able to do some research beforehand and have some thoughts beforehand. So, thank you.
All right.
Just a quick, to his concern, I did do some checking, and we do have a $2 million policy. The client that he's dealing with only has a quarter of that. And I do know Rob does work very hard, as you all got notified with an email that got stripped, to make sure that those particular messages that come into our system are picked up, and we try to catch them. So we do work very hard, and I will say you probably got the most diligent IT department that's out there, and we will continue to do that.
Yeah, and to that point, we were real close to being breached, and Rob and his team were able to pull it off, and so embarrassed one of our employees, which, they send out, I guess quarterly, they send us out, a fishing expedition, and they've got me once, and so I'm never gonna let him get me again. So Hippler, remember that. You're not gonna get me again. But they do a tremendous job, and, when protection, as Cliff Shepard said, is important. Talked about Legends of Apopka. That will be Tuesday, February 27th at the Community Center. We got the Wekiva High School Choir. Mark Wright will be entertaining. We'll have the books for sale, which will be our Black historical leaders. And it will be for sale for $10, sales tax included. Saturday Sound, I think somebody mentioned, great event. I just wish we'd had more families, more kids. It was just, the band was good, but the entertainment was even better. So it was a great time. Let's see, we got the charter review Thursday, February 15th, and then our joint workshop, the form-based code for KPI on Tuesday, February 13th, joint with planning. So with that, we're done.